everyone. Welcome to the September 20th zoning meeting of the Charlotte City Council. I'm now going to call a meeting to order. Tonight's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting in accordance to the electronic meeting statute and the requirements that have been requested and approved through that statute are being met through electronic means. We hope that you will take the time to view or listen to this meeting. You can do that on the government channel, the city's Facebook page, or on the city's YouTube page. And so what I'd like to do now is we have some people joining us virtually and others in the space. So I'm going to ask those that are in the government center today to begin with introductions. And we'll start with our newest staff person that's now joining us, Brandon Brazil, who will be our consultant on our transportation projects and other aspects of transportation in our rezoning efforts. So, Brandon, welcome. And how long have you been here?
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I've been with the city for about 6 years, and I've been in my new role as the land development section manager for CDOT for about 2 months.
So all of the petitioners, please be willing to welcome Brandon for us. All right, and now we'll start with the other introductions of those that are joining us in the Government Center. We'll start with the City Clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk.
Good evening, Renee Johnson, District 4, the University District.
Good evening, excuse me, Julie Eiselt, serving at large and as Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening, I'm Vi Lyles and I serve as Mayor.
Good evening, Taiwo Jaba, Planning Director and City Manager's Office.
Good evening, Victoria Watlington, City Council District 3.
Larkin Eggleston, District 1.
Terry Hagler-Gray, Senior Assistant City Attorney.
Donata Jackson, Office of Constituent Services.
All right, now that we'll go to those members of the council and staff that are joining us virtually. Can we start with our at-large members?
Happy Monday, Dimple Achmera, serving you as an at-large member.
Braxton Winston at large.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Newton, District 5.
Tarek Bakari, District 6.
Our staff folks that are joining us virtually.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Dave Penn, Rezoning Program Manager.
Lakeisha Hall with CDOT.
All right. Is there anyone that I failed to recognize or for their introduction? All right. Thanks, everyone. We begin our meeting with an invocation, and tonight that we will have that invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Julie Eiselt. We understand that we have religious diversity in our community, including those without a religious faith. But we do this because we want to solemnize the proceedings that we hold as a group. So with that, I'll recognize the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight I just have a very short reading, but sometimes fewer words are more impactful. And this one is called The Repair of the World. If you see what needs to be repaired and how to repair it, then you have found a piece of the world that God has left for you to complete. But if you only see what is wrong and what is ugly in the world, then it is you yourself that needs repair. From Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Thank you.
And now we will also begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. So if you will please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, if you or most of us who have sat through zoning meetings know that there is a complete process that we use. But before we go through that process, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Johnson, who has a special proclamation to give for us this evening.
Mayor, this is Ed Driggs. I just wanted you to know I wasn't able to log in, but I'm here now.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Driggs, for joining us, and we will so note that in a minute.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a moment this evening just to recognize University of North Carolina, Charlotte. for its 75th anniversary. As you all know, I am the District 4 University representative, and I'm just very proud to have this honor to recognize them tonight. A few facts about UNCC. The university has returned to face-to-face instruction, and there's a feeling of excitement on the campus in being back. I had the pleasure of driving through the campus on move-in day, and there is an excitement, and we're just happy to have all the students. Welcome to the students, and thank you to all of the staff. UNC Charlotte set a record enrollment for the third year in a row with 30,448 undergraduate and graduate students. They had a record graduate enrollment of 6,332 graduate students. There's 4,256 first-year students, and that's the highest number in school history. And they have an average weighted GPA of 3.95. The University Honors Program grew by more than 21%. There's 2,605 transfer students, and nearly a third of all new students are in a STEM major. So we've got a great future here in the city of Charlotte. Lastly, 87% of the faculty and the staff are vaccinated. That's 81% of the residential students, and 74% of the students who are on campus on-campus classes are vaccinated. The data from the on-campus testing only shows a 1.8 positivity rate in cases, and that was as of 9/16/21. So again, it is their 75th anniversary, and I'm honored to read this proclamation. Whereas the University of North Carolina, UNC at Charlotte, opened its doors in 1946 as the Charlotte Center of the University of North Carolina, serving World War II veterans going to college funded by a city and then a county tax. And whereas with the support of local and regional business leaders and a donation from the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners, the college acquired land on what will become the 1,000-acre campus, and facilities were built with the passage of bonds by Mecklenburg County voters. Charlotte College opened on this site in 1961 and in 1964 became a 4-year degree, granting state-supported institution. In 1965, the North Carolina General Assembly voted to make Charlotte College the 4th campus of the UNC system, and the UNC Board of Governors approved programs leading to master's degree in 1969. Authorizing UNC Charlotte to offer doctoral programs in 1992. And whereas public-private university partnerships have been the hallmark of the university's 75-year history, with the successful and bold initiatives being accomplished through collaborative leadership, including the extension of the Lynx Light Rail to campus and a comprehensive city, county, state, and university partnership for the Center City Campus, now known as the Dubois Center, and the investment in the new Conference Center. And whereas the mission of the university is to provide quality educational opportunities, strengthen the region through research and discovery, and lead in equity and engagement, with more than 165,200 degrees awarded, a student body that has grown to more than 30,000 students, and over 3,700 talented faculty and dedicated staff. The university is driving economic growth, opportunity, and success. And whereas in the 75-year history of the university, 5 leaders have made their mark with strong civic and business engagement and visionary leadership to build what is today a nationally recognized public research university, founded by Bonnie Cohn, led by Dean Covert into university status, propelled into graduate education by E.K. Fretwell, advanced into doctoral programs by James H. Woodward, significant student growth in launching Division I football by Philip L. Dubois, and shaping what's next for the university's future by Sharon L. Gaber. Now, therefore, we, Vi Alexander Lyles, Mayor of Charlotte, and George R. Dunlap, Chair of the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 24th, 2021 as UNC Charlotte's Day in recognition of the 75th anniversary of our region's university. So thank you.
A gift to have the educational institution of UNC Charlotte, now called Charlotte, within our city and to serve our community. I'd also like to take a moment just to recognize the loss of a mayor in our state. Chuck Allen was the mayor of Goldsboro, and he served on the North Carolina League of Municipalities Board and worked tirelessly for his community, but all communities across the state. Chuck was fallen by cancer, and it was very, very quick and very difficult time. But as we say, he gave his great service while he was here, and that we hope that his family accepts our condolences and his city continues to value the service that he gave to them. So with that, do we have any other recognitions to make tonight? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and go into the explanation of our zoning process. Many of us know this, but let's just walk through it very quickly here. The process begins when the applications are submitted to the planning staff for review. There are two types of cases on our agenda: decisions and hearings. Decisions are cases for which the public hearing has already previously been held and there's no further comment. Hearings, we have people wishing to speak have signed up with the city clerk. And then finally, we also have staff presentations during the hearings to work with the council to familiarize them with the petition. In the case of those hearings, the petitioner and those in favor get 3 minutes combined to present their case, unless their opponents signed up. And if their staff or the opponents are in opposition, the petitioner gets 10 minutes, the opponents get 10 minutes, and the petitioner gets a 2-minute rebuttal. If no one is opposed or signed up to speak, staff provides the council a short explanation, the public hearing is closed, and the next item is opened. The petitions are then sent to the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission for review. And I'm not sure who's joining us from the commission today, so, Kimba Samuel, thank you very much. I now see you. So if you would go ahead and walk through the process of the Zoning Committee, that would be very helpful for us.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council.
Ms. Samuel, I think we're having a little bit of a problem with your audio.
I serve as chair of the Zoning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. The Zoning Committee will meet.
Kiba, you might want to turn off your video so we can hear your audio better. You're breaking up.
You're breaking up and it's freezing, Kiba. Okay, I think since it is breaking up, I guess one of the...
Can you hear me better?
Yeah. Let's try it again. Let's go ahead and begin.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, much better.
Mayor Pro Tem, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council and public, my name is Kiba Samuel. I serve as chair of the Zoning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. The Zoning Committee will meet on Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 to deliberate and finalize recommendations on petitions being heard tonight. That 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, October 5th meeting will not be a continuation of tonight's public hearing. There will be no opportunity for public input at the Zoning Committee meeting unless and until a committee member has a question that is best addressed by a member of the public. The October 5th, 2021 meeting will stream live on the City of Charlotte's Planning, Design, and Development's Facebook page. Joining us tonight via the city's YouTube channel or government channel are my fellow Zoning Committee members, Douglas Welton, Andrew Blumenthal, Astrid Chirinos, John Hamm, Courtney Rhodes, and Sam Spencer. Again, my name is Kiba Samuel, Zoning Chair and Chair of the Planning Commission, and I will be with you for the entirety of the evening should you have any questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Samuel, of course, if you have any questions, please just make sure that you work with Ms. Jackson, and we'll address your questions as well. So with that, one of the things that the council has learned is that at about 10 o'clock after a long meeting, we generally don't hear very well what people are trying to communicate. And so with that, we have the option of recessing at 10 o'clock and convening at a later date. So with that, that is an explanation of the City of Charlotte's zoning process. And now we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is deferrals and withdrawals. And I'm going to ask Mr. Patton to walk through the deferrals and withdrawals, and then I would ask for a motion to accept the recommendations suggested by the staff as a result of the deferrals and withdrawals.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have several withdrawals this evening, or excuse me, deferrals. One was just added right before the meeting. I'll go through all the item numbers with you. That would be items number 2, 2019-179 by Ronald Staley Jr. Item number 3, 2021-022 by LMS Dilworth. Item number 4, 2020-044, by Tribeca Properties. Item number 5, which is 2020-038 from the Clover Group. And item number 14, which was just added, and that would be 2021-062 by Childress Klein Properties and Dominion Realty Partners. Those are all decisions that are requesting a deferral till next month's meeting of October 18th. We also have several hearings that are requesting a deferral. That would be item number 21, petition 2015-027. That's actually requesting a deferral of 6 months to March 21st, 2022. And the rest would be item number 22, 2021-060, item number 23, 2021-092, and item number 24, which is petition 2021-014 by Whitestone Holdings. Those are all public hearings requesting a deferral to October 18th of this month, or this year.
Motion to approve all deferrals as stated.
Second.
Jane Ajmera.
Is there any discussion on any of the deferrals? I was just asking about the one that's from 2015 that's now 6 years old, and whether or not we continue to have the deferral. I think, well, why don't we just defer it for a year, another year, make it 20 or 6 months this time? All right, I'm sorry.
Mayor, thank you. This is Jeff Brown. I just wanted to confirm that Dave had mentioned 062 in that listing. Thank you.
I think that's included in our motion.
Yes, it was.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, Ms. Watlington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a quick question for Dave as far as 062's deferral. If he could speak to, was that initiated by the petitioner? And if you knew what for, you can let us know now, or you can just shoot me a note.
Yeah, we received an update from the petitioner right before the start of the meeting. I can follow up with you, or they can follow up with you directly with additional details.
All right.
Madam Mayor,
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to make sure item number 24 was included in that list.
Okay, so I had 24 as being included. Whitestone Holdings?
Okay,
Yes.
thank
He
you.
did
Yes.
read that. All right. So is there any further discussions on the motion? Any further discussion or questions about the motion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Ms. Ajmera?
Yes.
You know, Ms. Jackson, I need to see the pictures of people as they vote.
Mayor, I voted yes. Can you see me?
Thank you. I did. We didn't have the photos of you as you're voting, and that's required for you to be able to vote. So I just wanted to be sure that we were legal, and we are now legal. All right, Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Winston's your turn to come up.
Yes.
I have to see the picture, so.
Madam, there's a lag, so when there are two screens up, so his screen will come up. Mr. Winston, can you talk to us a little bit more?
Absolutely. I have no problem talking to
Use his microphone. Use him.
All right, and now we have Mr. Winston and Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
It should pop up.
Okay, I'm going to go to the people in the room and wait for Mr. Bakari. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Graham? Mr. Graham, he's on, let's go with Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? All right, so now we're waiting on any picture from Mr. Bakari.
Yes, for me, and if staff wouldn't mind unsharing that screen and going to grid view, that would probably make it easier on the mayor.
It probably would be.
So, okay,
But
it'll be
we'll-
a lot of toggling. It's going to take a long time to load back and forth, but we can do that. Just if you can wait for us a bit to toggle back and forth. So, Wendy, can you take down the slides that are up now?
Yes.
All right, here we are. So now, Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Newton? Motion passes unanimously. So I'm going to go now to the first item for decision, which is item number 6. Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. All right, this is petition 2021-036 by Optimistic Venture Group for approximately 3/10 of an acre south side of Hoskins Road. It's in District 2. The current zoning is multifamily residential. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. The zoning committee voted 7 to 0 to approve this petition. Staff recommends approval of the petition. So with that,
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Ms. Ajmer, I'm going to go through people that I can see, and then we'll just keep going. Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
All right. Can we get Ms. Ajmera?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
The motion passes.
I'm gonna say yes too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Winston, jeez. It's hard to keep one order and then another one, but we're working on it. I'll get there by the time we get to the last item, I guess. Okay, the next item is item number 7, petition 2021-048 by the Drakeford Company for approximately 6/10 of an acre on Beatty's Ford between French and Brookshire. It's in District 2. Current zoning is neighborhood business pedestrian overlay. Proposed zoning is neighborhood services pedestrian overlay. The staff and the zoning committee recommend approval of this item. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
Mayor,
We have a second?
Mayor, can we just make sure that the motion includes approval of the statement of consistency?
Motion to adopt and approve. Make all your motions as motions to adopt and
Did I
approve.
have that one as a motion? I didn't have that as the statement of consistency.
Mr. Graham, did you make a motion
This
to
is item
adopt and approve?
7.
Who's running the meeting? Adopt and approve, yes.
I know, but okay, let me make sure you, Ms.
There's multiple voices coming over
Hagler
here.
Gray, I had for a statement of consistency started at 8. We're on number 7.
No, all of the decisions will need a statement. of
Oh, I'm
consistency.
sorry. I thought you were meaning consistent with the zoning changes afterwards. I'm catching
No,
up with you
yeah.
now.
Sorry.
All right, so we have to have a motion and approval of the statement of consistency. With that, we have a motion by Mr. Graham, a second by Ms. Johnson. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
All right, is there any, now we'll go to Ms. Ajmera?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes, I apologize. Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, the next item is item number 8, and in this case, we do have a change after the zoning committee had met, and the staff recommends that these changes are not significant, but I'll have Mr. Patton to go through what those changes are.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This petition made a change after the zoning committee's recommendation, and that change was to address that remaining outstanding issue that was still present after the zoning committee meeting. The petitioner provided architectural details for both the expected car wash use as well as potential other non-residential uses, so they match a previously approved plan next door 2021-007. Staff believes the change is minor and does not warrant any additional review by the zoning committee. Thank you.
Motion to not send back.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt and not send it back. So with that, we will go through a roll call vote unless there's discussion. Is there anyone that would like to discuss the recommendation by the staff? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? All right, now we'll go through Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bukhari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, may I have a motion to adopt the zoning committee and the staff recommendation for approval and adopt the statement of consistency as our own? May I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, a second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion of the decision? Hearing no discussion, now we will vote to adopt the recommendation and the statement of consistency. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bukhari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next item is item number 9. Again, we have a change since the zoning committee's recommendation. I'd ask Mr. Patton to outline those changes, and then we'll have a motion whether to adopt the staff recommendation. Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This petition that made some changes from the zoning committee's recommendation as well. Actually, there have been some changes even up to the last few minutes prior to the meeting starting. The big change was reducing the number of units from 38. We're now down to 36. That would be a reduction from that original 38 units to now 36 units. They did increase the number of internal visitor parking spaces from 8 to 9, increase the percent of masonry materials to be used on front facades facing right-of-ways from 25 to 30%, specified a max of 3 units per building when fronting a public street, also increased the separations from unit 37 to the property line from 12 feet to 20 feet, added a note prohibiting use of chain link fence as a screening material facing right-of-ways, also added a note that front entrances along public streets would be elevated 12 inches above adjacent sidewalk grade, provided a commitment for minimum two-car garages for each unit, also provided a full view of conceptual elevations and site cross-sections at the southern property line adjacent to the single-family residential existing, and also added potential street trees along Pinehurst Place and Woodlawn Road. And the final change is one that we just received prior to the meeting started, and that would be a commitment to a 20-foot setback from back of curb along Pinehurst Avenue, or Pinehurst Place, excuse me. That would be the final change that was put on this plan. Staff believes that the changes are fairly minor, they're more restrictive, and they're made in cooperation with involved community members and would not warrant any additional review by the zoning committee.
Move to not send back.
Questions?
All right, do I have a motion to accept the staff's recommendation that the changes are minor and that we will
not send back.
proceed?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bukhari, you want to discuss the motion on the changes?
Not this one. On the next vote, I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll start with those folks in the room. Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
Mr. Bakari, did we get Mr. Bakari?
Yes?
Okay, Mr. Driggs,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
All right, now do I have a motion to adopt the petition 2021-52 for approximately 1.7 acres on the south side of the intersection of Selwyn Avenue and East Woodline Road, east of Park in District 6. Current zoning is single-family residential. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. Do I have a motion to adopt and approve and adopt the statement of consistency as our own?
Move to adopt and approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Thank you. And this is, in my 4 years of rezonings, the most real-time, last-minute negotiation that I've ever participated in. So I greatly thank the neighbors for all the work over the weekend and the petitioner as well. This site is one that is in a good spot for density, and we're going to get density. Is it possible that we could have gotten more? Potentially, but we also have to blend in the neighbors that live right there and their personal concerns about traffic and parking and things of that nature. So we have just come to a compromise in the last literally 10 minutes that the petitioner and the neighborhood have agreed on, that now, as you've heard from Mr. Pettin, the neighbors have now relayed to me that they are supportive of this organization. The spokesperson relayed that on behalf of the neighbors. So I think that is a great thing, because as a district rep, it's always so much better to find the middle ground so we can stand here tonight and do the same thing, the same request from two parties. I will also add that Mayor Pro Tem has raised today, and in the last time we discussed this in the public forum, in fairness, issues about stormwater. And while I will agree with her wholeheartedly that we must push on Charlotte stormwater and the things that we need to accomplish, particularly in these parts of town where the stormwater issues are real and the infrastructure issues are real, I would just relay that with this case, this project meets our criteria for stormwater as an individual petition and as a project, while it also reduces impervious area from the current state that it exists in today. So with that being said, while I agree that that is an issue that we need to push forward, that is our issue to solve, and pushing that on outside of our policies, petitioners like this only will have one outcome, which is to increase and further hurt affordability. So with that, I would encourage you all to join with me, and I would thank wholeheartedly the neighbors and the petitioner for their around-the-clock work to get to this point.
All right. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Bakari, for sharing that. I'm conflicted on this one, but that's not because I don't think the developer has been working to try to address things that I've had concerns about, definitely. Stormwater being one of them. And this is one of those times when I'm struggling with a petition, but I think the city needs to address why I'm struggling. And in this case, it has to do with stormwater. We have got to, if we're going to really embrace a more dense city, a more livable city, 10-minute neighborhoods, we have got to address the infrastructure issues that are out there right now that are building up and that become more and more of a backlog. At one point, and Mr. Driggs might remember this number, I think we had $1 billion backlog in stormwater. And at some point, man, this is going to come to burn us. So that's not the responsibility of any one developer or any one neighborhood. But I just put that out there in this case, and that's why I feel so conflicted about this. I do appreciate that the developer has a project that has less impervious space than that is what is there right now. And I would ask that when they're doing this development, if they could please work with the neighborhood to put some kind of drainage in there, that because it's a heck of a lot cheaper while you're building. Please put some drainage in there that's going to help those neighbors across the street who get all the water that ends up on their yard. In the state of North Carolina, wherever the water ends up, it's their responsibility. So that's how I feel about this right now. I just personally don't feel ready to take a vote on this. This is not to say it's not a good project. I'm just not ready to support it. But I do thank everybody who's been working on it. And I hope that if this does pass, that the developer will continue to work with those neighbors that are most impacted by the discussions that they've been having, by the things they've been having on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Phipps.
Yeah, I just want to get clarification on the number of parking spaces for this site. You said it's 36 units now, times 2 car garages and 9 visitor spaces. Is that the total amount, like 82 spaces we're talking about?
The garage units would count towards meeting the requirement for the dwellings. They would just be garages individually for those housing units that'll be built. The 9 spaces are just dispersed throughout the project just to provide visitor and overflow parking.
So the fact that we have 2 car garages doesn't mean that's allowing for 2 spaces per unit?
The 2 car garage would accommodate the 2 spaces required, but it would be included within the unit versus being in an individual parking space, either on street or in an actual, parking area.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any further speakers? Mr. Driggs?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the Mayor Pro Tem's concerns on stormwater, and I agree that we need to address those issues aggressively. But I think, to be fair, we need to acknowledge all the progress that has been made in that area since the time that we identified $1 billion backlog potentially. We have greatly reduced that through various steps that were taken to change eligibility, to review ones that were outstanding, and are now in a mode where we can see the backlog declining, the waiting list declining. So we are taking this very seriously. I personally intend to support this petition because I think it has merits that outweigh reservations that I might have about stormwater. So I hope we can approve this and that we will continue our fight to get the stormwater situation in hand going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driggs. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge what Mayor Pro Tem said. I think those are very serious issues, not just for this petition, but we hear lack of infrastructure continuously. And I would just ask my colleagues, like, what is the answer? When we talk about infrastructure, the stormwater, I mean, this is a petition, but when you get calls from your residents that the water is on their yard because of growth and because of settling, and there's nothing that can be done. We know the schools are overcrowded. We know that the streets the traffic, there's not the support there, and the sidewalks. So when do we as council really start to step back and take a look at those concerns? And I know it's a challenge of a growing city, but I mean, what you just said is very significant, and I understand that this developer can't bear the brunt of the city's growth, but what is the solution? And we as council have to in our strategic planning session, but these are great questions. You know, we were on the BPC call last night, and we talk about education. We know that our children are failing in schools. I mean, it's a systemic issue, and at some point, we as council really need to take a hard look at development in the city.
I think that you'll get complete agreement. The comments around the dais has been exceptionally accurate and thoughtful. For me, this is the continuation of deciding how do we grow the city, and or whether or not how we want to change so that everybody can have a place where they're not seeing the flooding as a result of it. So I would encourage us during our planning retreat session that we begin to think about, you know, we focused on housing, we're focusing on transportation, how do we focus on growth? And I think some of this is around having a very specific task. Mr. Driggs has done this several times as a budget committee person chairing, and I think that Mayor Pro Tem is certainly correct, is that all of us understand this is an issue. It's something, and climate change hasn't made it any easier. So with that, I recognize the Mayor Pro Tem and would suggest that the council really begin to frame the questions that you have and think about the places you want to go to resolve those questions and be prepared to discuss during our planning retreat.
Well, that's exactly right, Madam Mayor, is that this is our job, and it's not up to one developer to fix. We have to insist that we fix the problems. And Mr. Driggs, I might be wrong, but a lot of that backlog went away because we told them we can't help you. So we got rid of the, I think, CDE cases or D&E, and that's not the fault of Stormwater. They really worked hard to catch up. They offered incentives for people to do it, to participate to do it. So it's not, I really applaud the Stormwater Department's efforts, but we have a Stormwater Department because we realized we had a problem with stormwater. So that's our job as policymakers. If we feel this is a problem, if we feel we have a bus system that doesn't meet the needs of this community, which it for sure does not, then we as council members have got to say, this is what's important. All these other things to come are great, but we've got to step up and say we want to invest in a bus system that we could be proud of. We need a stormwater system so we can handle all the growth coming to this city, and that's just our job. So I don't want to be on record as voting against this because it's a bad project. It's not. It's just these are what my concerns are. Thank you.
All right. So with that, we have a motion for adoption of the recommendation to approve and accept the statement of consistency from the zoning committee as our own. So hearing any further discussion? Hearing none. So this will be, I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
I abstain. And I understand what that means, so that's just on the record.
I'm not sure you can do abstain.
Well, that's a yes vote if I abstain, right?
No, you.
Can I do that, Terry?
I don't.
Okay, so I abstain, so.
Be a no vote.
Okay, then I'm going to refrain from supporting this at this time.
All right, so Mayor Pro Tem, it's a no vote. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham? Okay. Mr. Graham, I can't hear you.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. All right, the next item is item number 10, petition 2021-053 by Catalyst Capital Partners for 7 acres located on the east side of University Executive Park Drive. This in District 4. The current zoning is mixed-use development optional and office conditional. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development, neighborhood center. The zoning committee and the staff recommend adoption of this petition. May I have a motion for approval of the recommendation and the statement of consistency?
So moved.
Ms. Johnson makes the motion. Who makes the second?
Driggs.
Mr. Driggs, thank you. All right, is there any discussion of the item?
I have a question.
All right, Mr. Phipps?
So why are we referencing a 2010 University City plan when there's a more current plan of 2015 available? Isn't the 2015 plan more relevant than the 2010 plan?
Mr. Pettin or Mr. Jayaba?
Just Mr. either.
You're on mute. Unmute.
Yeah, it would certainly be the more up-to-date plan. I just have to see, this parcel may have still fallen under the 2010 plan. I'm not sure if the boundaries overlapped or if they had difference in area. So I can check real quick to see what which plan applied. But I would imagine if there's two plans that are in place, one may be for certain areas of the university city area, and one may be for a different geographic location up there that was a little bit more up to date. So the info that I've got is the 2010 petition or 2010 plan, but I can go back and, like I said, try to verify while we're working through the rest of the discussion on this one.
I do know that there is a 2010 university research plan. I don't know if maybe they were interchanged erroneously or not. But it looks like that this one, being close to Tryon, is is outside of that research park plan. But if you could check that, I can get an answer offline.
All right, we'll follow, Mr. Pettin, would you follow up with Mr. Phipps offline?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It looks like, yeah, and I just looked on our GIS site, and it does reference the 2015 plan as well, which is for mixed-use residential, office, retail. So it may just be that the staff captured the University City Area Plan, but it does look like it's the Blue Line Extension University City Area Plan from May 11th of 2015. It recommends residential, office, and retail, which TOD would be consistent with.
All right, thank you, Mr. Phipps, for bringing that to our attention. If there needs to be any addition or correction, we could amend that in the recommendation. So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 11 is petition 2021-054 by Spacecraft, approximately 3/4 of an acre located near the southwest terminus of North Brevard at Parkwood. It's in District 1. The current zoning is transit-oriented development mixed optional. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development urban center. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to accept this recommendation, and the statement of consistency is our own?
Motion to adopt and approve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eggleston. Do I have a second? Second. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? All right, Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item number 12 for petition 2021-057 by Providence Group Capital, approximately 1.1 acres located at the southern intersection of South Tryon and Rampart. It's in District 3. The current zoning is Transit-Oriented Development Neighborhood Center. The proposed zoning is Transit-Oriented Development Urban Center. The staff and the zoning committee recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendation and adopt the statement of consistency? Ms. Watlington, do I have a second?
Yes. Driggs.
Mr. Driggs. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari? Mr. Bakari?
Yes?
Okay. I'm sorry. If I can't hear you, I just can't. It's just
Sorry.
sound. Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is item 13, petition 2021-058 by 501 Briar Creek, approximately 2/10 of an acre located on the west side of Briar Creek Road. It's in District 1. The current zoning is office, and the proposed zoning is general business. The staff and the zoning committee recommend approval of this. May I have a motion for approval and acceptance of the statement of consistency is our own?
Motion to adopt and approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second. Driggs.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is item number 14. That has been deferred, so the next item is item number 15, petition number 2021-063 by Prologis for approximately 105 acres located between Shopton and Beam Roads in District 3. Current zoning is distributive business conditional airport noise overlay. Proposed zoning is light industrial conditional with the airport noise overlay. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to approve the petition and adopt the statement of consistency? Ms. Watlington, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Johnson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Mr. Phipps.
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Watlington. All right, Ms. Ajmira.
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
Yes.
Mr. Bakari.
Yes.
Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
All right. The next item is item number 16, petition 2021-065 by Anthony DeRosa for approximately 13 acres located on Quay Road, east of Mallard Creek. It's in the ETJ, closest to District 4. The current zoning is commercial center and single-family residential. The proposed zoning is multifamily residential. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to approve the petition and adopt a statement of consistency as our own?
Yes, so moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second, Driggs?
All right. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Yes. Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is item number 17, rezoning petition 2021-066 by T.E. Wash Holdings and Rock Wash, approximately 1.7 acres located on the west side of West W.T. Harris, south of Mount Holly's Huntersville Road. It's in District 2. The current zoning is general business conditional. The proposed zoning is general business conditional with a site plan amendment. In this case, the zoning committee voted 5-2 to recommend approval of this petition. The staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion for this petition and to adopt for approval and adoption of the statement of consistency?
Move both.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right. The next item is item 18, petition 2021-067 by Twellinger Pappas for approximately 3.4 acres located on the east side of South Tryon and the northwest of Yancey Road. It's in District 3. The current zoning is general industrial. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development neighborhood center. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do we have a motion to approve the petition and adopt the statement of consistency as our own? Ms. Watlington, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. All right, with that, is there any discussion of item 18? Hearing none, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is item 19. Petition 2021-068 by Dream Key Partners for approximately 5.2 acres located at the intersection of Mallard Creek Road and Hubbard Road. The current zoning is single-family residential. The proposed zoning is conditional, institutional. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Is there a motion to approve the petition and adopt the statement of consistency?
So move both.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Next item is item number 20, petition 2021-069 by Selwyn Property Group for approximately 2.19 acres located on the western corner of Morrisville Drive and Jason Avenue. It's in District 3. The current zoning is general industrial conditional, and the proposed zoning is general industrial. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to approve the petition and adopt a statement of consistency?
So moved.
Ms. Watlington?
Second.
And second by Mr. Driggs. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That ends all of the decisions that we have before us this evening, and now we'll go to our hearings. We have several hearings, and fortunately, or I guess things are going well, we do not have any contested items, so each petition, the staff will give a short presentation about the petition, and those that are in favor of the petition will have 3 minutes to speak, and then we will move forward from there with council questions. So with that, our first petition is item number 25, petition 2021-137 by the City of Charlotte for approximately 1.7 acres located near the northeast intersection of University City Boulevard. It's in District 4. The current zoning is general business. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development neighborhood center. And we'll have Mr. Pettin give us an overview, and then we'll be followed by Pam Whiteman and Miles Vaughn with the City of Charlotte's Neighborhood Services Department for the petitioners, as petitioners. So with that, Mr. Pettin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, 2021-137 is in the University City area. It is currently zoned B2, and the proposed zoning is for TOD-NC, Neighborhood Center. It adopted future land uses from the Blue Line Extension University City Area Plan that does recommend office and retail uses, does allow residential dwellings up to 17 units per acre under those office and retail zoning districts. This is a conventional petition. Staff does recommend approval. While it is inconsistent with the Blue Line Extension Area Plan, we do feel it's consistent with guidance under the TOD ordinance that this district will allow for all those mix of uses permitted in TOD-NC and would be located within no more than 1 mile to a transit station. This petition is part of properties that were presented to council, I believe back in either May or June, about the city pursuing some properties that were city-owned for possible affordable housing. This property is one of 2 this evening that is going through the rezoning process proactively to be rezoned so it can be included in an RFP for future development that city will undertake through Housing and Neighborhood Services. I'm not sure if Miles and Pam joined us on the call. We did send the invite to them and the link. They may be here to answer some questions. I can try and answer additional questions that you might have as well. Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to recognize Pam Whiteman and Miles Vaughn, if you're available to make a presentation.
Madam Mayor, they're not on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jackson.
Madam Mayor, Miles or Ms. Whitman is not on.
He is on?
No.
Okay. So we don't have any speakers on. Our guests, are there questions about the petition for the rezoning petition on item 25? Any questions? All right.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Ms. Ajmira.
Ms. Ajmira?
Oh. So, Mr. Patton, how far is this site located from the light rail station?
It's within the 1 mile for the TOD NC district. I can try to measure it here while we're online to see if I can get a final measurement, but it's within the 1 mile of the station to then pursue that TOD NC. Let me see if I can get a final measurement from the University City Station here. It looks like it's just around a half mile to the University City Boulevard station on North Tryon Street.
Sorry. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
since it's within that 1 mile radius, it meets the TOD requirements, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If there are no further questions, then do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Driggs.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion on the closing? If hearing no discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari? I think we lost Mr. Bakari there. Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the next agenda item is, again, another petition by the City of Charlotte, 2021-138, for approximately 2.6 acres located on the south side of Providence Road West, northeast of Marvin Road. It's in District 7. The current zoning is R3, single family, and the proposed zoning is R22, multifamily residential. The staff recommends approval of this petition. And now we'll hear from Mr. Patton about this petition, again by the City of Charlotte.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, 2021-138 is about 2.6 acres. It's on Providence Road West, just northeast of Marvin Road, west of Johnston Road. The current zoning is R3. The requested zoning is R22 multifamily. The adopted future land use from the South District Plan does recommend single family at a lower density around 3 DUA. We did run GDP, and while it wouldn't support the 22 dwelling units per acre under the R22 MF zoning, there were some other criteria that we also looked at to recommend approval of the petition, given the location of it, on Providence Road. It would serve as a good transition and allowed land use and density between the multifamily that's to the west and the institutional commercial uses to the east. That institutional use is a newly built CMPD station. The site's located adjacent to a commercial node and within walking distance to retail amenities, employment opportunities, et cetera. It's also located on a major thoroughfare that connects to Johnson Road and Lancaster Highway. And also due to its site location and surrounding development, Staff felt that single family is a less likely outcome on this piece of property, and a multifamily project could be supported. And it does provide some opportunities for additional and diverse housing options in the area. Again, this is the City of Charlotte initiated petition through Housing and Neighborhood Services. It is one of the properties that was discussed as part of the package for potential RFPs, I believe, in November. That would go out for properties that the city owned that could be then used for development of affordable housing. It may not be a guaranteed 100% affordable project, but there would be affordable requirements built into the RFP that would need to be responded to. This is, again, the second one this evening that would fall under that process that they're working through right now through Housing and Neighborhood Services. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, are there any questions for Mr. Pettin?
Mr.
Hearing no
Driggs.
questions, do I have a motion?
Mr. Driggs has a
My
question.
hand is up.
I couldn't hear. Wait a
Mr.
minute.
Driggs has a question.
I'm sorry, I did not see you, I see it on the screen, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Driggs?
So we don't have to have a community meeting for this, but is there any way that people who live in the area are aware of what is taking shape here? I'm supportive of our intentions, but I don't like the idea that there is a perception by the neighbors that this just sort of happened to them. Can we establish a list of contacts as we would for a conditional meeting, or is there some way that we can actually engage with people nearby?
Yeah, that is one of the items that we did bring up when we talked about this property with Housing and Neighborhood Services, that a conventional could be supported, but it would lack that community meeting that we felt was going to be important. I do believe they are working to have a community meeting just to give folks an opportunity to understand what's potentially coming on the property in terms of the RFP process and any development that would take shape. I can circle back with Housing and Neighborhood Services, see where they are with that, and give you a follow-up offline outside of this meeting. But I know that is something they were trying to put together as well, particularly since this was conventional and not a conditional petition that would require that up front.
I would just register that I strongly encourage that. I mean, particularly given that we're stretching the limits on land use in the normal sense. I recognize this is actually a good location right next to a police station. And on the other side, the homes back onto this, but there's more than just a fence between the site and the nearest homes. So I see the advantages, but I just don't want a situation where people feel as if they were kind of ambushed by this whole thing. So if you could pursue that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, no problem. One also that looks like we did capture now we're using Nextdoor to go well beyond the mailing requirements. This one was posted through that platform as well. So we did provide some additional notice, but a direct community meeting is certainly something we'll continue to work with Housing and Neighborhood Services on.
Good. Please make sure I get any notices you send out of a meeting or otherwise, just so I'm aware of what you're receiving. Thank you.
Well, yep. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Questions, Mayor? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to piggyback off Councilmember Driggs. I'd like the same notice for the previous zoning petition, the same situation. The one previous, if I can be copied on the notice to the community for that conventional zoning as well. Thank you.
Yeah, will do.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps? Yes. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Yes.
Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right. The next item is item number 27, petition 2020-144 by Hopper Communities, approximately 1.3 acres located along East 16th and Louise in the Belmont neighborhood, District 1. The current zoning is light industrial, residential, multifamily residential. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of technical revisions on site and building design. So I'll have Mr. Pettin give us an overview.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, 2020-144 is, as you mentioned, about 1.3 acres. It's in the Belmont community on East 16th Street and Louise Avenue. The current zoning is a mix of R5 and R17. There's a small little sliver of I1 there just as you head towards Pegram Street. The proposed zoning is for UR2 conditional, and the adopted future land use from the Belmont area plan does recommend single-family uses of up to 5 DUA for the site. The proposal with this petition would be for up to 24 attached single-family units, along with any incidental and accessory uses permitted by the ordinance. Also proposes vehicular access from East 16th Street and Louise Avenue. That would improve a portion of Louise that's not previously constructed. The site would be served by a network of internal drive with internal sidewalks and pedestrian connections. Also, this plan illustrates and is requesting concurrently through CDOT's abandonment process, abandonment of an alley that's on the northern property line of the property that is right there adjacent, I believe, to the school. Also commits to installation of ADA curb at the corner of East 16th and Louise Avenue, as well as 8-foot sidewalk and 8-foot planting strip along the frontage on East 16th and the improved portion of Louise, and also commits to architectural standards that would include a max height of 49 feet, as well as limitations on things like vinyl, bendable blank wall expanses, garage and stoop for each units. It does also allow for some rooftop terraces on the units that are being proposed. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. We do have some technical revisions related to site and building design that need to be worked through. While it is inconsistent with the Belmont area plan's recommendation, it is consistent with the recommendation for single-family uses. It's also generally consistent with some of the R17 zoning that would be on the back side of the property, as well as some of that R17 that's adjacent to the property just off Louise Avenue. So with that, we will be happy to take any questions following the petitioner's presentation. Thank you.
All right, we have 4 speakers, John Carmichael, Nick Bouchon, Clay McCullough, and Bart Harper. Mr. Carmichael, if you'll lead us off, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council and the Zoning Committee, my name is John Carmichael, and I represent the petitioner, Hopper Communities. With me tonight are Bart Hopper and Clay McCullough of Hopper Communities and Nick Bouchon of Design Resource Group. Next slide, please. As Dave said, the site contains just under 1.3 acres. It's located on the north side of East 16th Street between Pegram Street and Louise Avenue. That's Hawthorne School to the northeast. Next slide. And this is just a zoomed in aerial of the site. Next slide. The petitioner is requesting that the site be rezoned from I1, R17, MF, and R5 to UR2 CD to accommodate up to 24 townhome units on the site. And this is a recent addition, 2 flat-style dwelling units as well. 2 flat-style units would be affordable units, and this was added in conjunction with working with the Belmont community on the rezoning request. We've had several meetings with their land use committee and met with the HOA, and of course we had a neighborhood meeting, and we're going back in October to meet with the HOA or the community organization again. Next slide. This is the site plan before the addition of the 2 affordable units. You can see there are 24 townhomes proposed. They would front on 16th Street. Louise Avenue would be improved to the east of the site. There'd be an 8-foot planting strip and an 8-foot sidewalk located along the site's public street frontages. The site would be accessed from Louise and East 16th Street. And if there were rooftop terraces, they would have to be located on the inner halves of the buildings that face the exterior property lines. Next slide. This is not rendered, and I apologize for that, but once again, this was a recent addition. The plan is identical to the one you just saw, except we've added a single building here that would contain 2 dwelling units. They would be flats, 2-bedroom units each, and they would be affordable for-sale dwelling units. Next slide. Next slide. These elevations are a part of the petitioner's rezoning plan. There'd be no vinyl. It'd be cementitious siding and masonry, as you can see. The building containing the affordable units would be architecturally compatible and consistent with the townhomes in terms of architectural style and exterior building materials. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. We appreciate the planning staff's favorable recommendation. There are 2 site plan issues which we will resolve this week, and once again, we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for staff or the petitioner?
Ms. Ajmira.
Madam Mayor, I have questions.
Yes, Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you. Mr. Carmichael, could you show us where those two flat styles units are located?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Wendy, can you go back? You see the box at the top? I don't know if you can see my cursor, but can y'all see the site plan?
Yes, we can
I
see
cannot
it.
see your cursor, but I can see the site plan.
Yeah, so you see the townhome buildings, and then the flat building is to the right of the northernmost townhome building, or the east, I guess, and then to the north of the building that's just, that fronts that alley from Louise Avenue.
It's the only square.
Okay, so the flat
Thank you. That's a better description. Thank you, Larkin.
Yeah. So the flat style, is that townhouse?
It would be really a condominium building, actually, because the legal structure hasn't been resolved, but it'd be for sale to families at 80% AMI.
Okay.
And thank you, Laura. I obviously didn't do well in geometry in school.
Mr. Carmichael, can you go back to the next slide, the one where it has pretty picture? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So where is the flat in here?
It's not. Those are the
so that
townhome
needs
buildings.
to be incorporated.
Yeah, we're going to have a note that just says it's going to be, because literally this was an addition within the last, 10 days or so. But it would be consistent in terms of style and materials as the townhome units, and the developer would want them to be.
Got it. So the flat is the affordable unit?
Yes.
Okay.
The community wanted us to include an affordable element, and Bart Hopper and Clay were happy to work with them and come to this solution.
We certainly appreciate that for including affordable unit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ajmira, I think if you're done, I'll turn to Mr. Eggleston.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same. Appreciate y'all working with us to get the affordable units in there. I think the council's talked a lot about the need for affordability, not only in rental projects, but in home ownership opportunities for people at different income levels. And so I think this helps us do that in a neighborhood that has been losing a lot of affordability. So thank you. And if you don't have anybody else queued up, I'll
Is there anyone else that would like to comment?
make a motion to close.
All right, I have a motion to close and a second. So we'll start with the roll call for Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right. The next item on our agenda is item number 28. And with item 28 is petition 2021-061 by Sunny Investments for approximately 3 acres located on the east side of Prosperity Church Road, south of Interstate 485. It's in District 4. The current zoning is single-family residential. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues around transportation, site, and building design. We have one speaker, John Holcomb, to follow Mr. Patton. So, Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-061, just over 3 acres. This is on Prosperity Church Road. The property is currently zoned R3, and the proposed zoning is UR2 conditional. The adopted future land use from the Prosperity Hucks area plan calls for residential up to 4 dwelling units per acre. The proposal with this petition is to allow up to 24 townhome units. They would provide a minimum 6-foot sidewalk, 8-foot planting strip along the site's frontages, as well as construction of an ADA compliant CATS bus pad along Prosperity Church Road. To have a 10-foot landscape buffer to the abutting single-family residential homes. The units would be rear-loaded on Prosperity Church Road and Prosperity Ridge Road extension. That's that yellow kind of dotted line that you can see just above the sketch drawing that's overlaid on the site or the slide there for you. Architectural standards would be included as part of the project as well. And as we mentioned, that Prosperity Ridge Road was part of the larger rezoning that took place, I guess, within the last year or so. That was for a very large mixed-use development that had commercial as well as multifamily residential and townhomes. That was a fairly large project that stretched between Prosperity Church Road and Ridge Road. And this petition would tie into that through that road connection there. And staff did recommend approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and site and building design. It's consistent with the plan recommendation for residential, but inconsistent with that 8 dwelling unit per acre request that they have with the zoning. While the proposed density is inconsistent, staff did feel that a slightly higher density would be appropriate, transitioning from the single family into that large mixed-use project next door that we just talked about. That was through rezoning petition 2020-088. That petition also included area for a future county park. So again, staff felt that transition from lower density to some moderate density into that mixed-use project made some reasonable sense in this location, and henceforth did recommend approval. And we'll be happy to take any questions following Mr. Holcomb's presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Holcomb, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you and good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. My name is John Holcomb, representing this petition for rezoning request for 24 market rate townhomes. At this time, the developer does not have building elevations to share with y'all, but again, the idea is a nice product, a market rate product as you transition from that existing neighborhood into the proposed mixed use development next door. As Mr. Patin mentioned, we do have some outstanding site plan comments from transportation and from site and design that we will be addressing this week, and have been in touch with some of the staff earlier today to talk through. Here really for any questions council may have, and we appreciate you all taking a look at this and hope we can have a favorable vote to move forward today.
All right, are there any questions for the staff or Mr. Holcomb? Ms. Johnson?
I have a question for Mr. Holcomb. I wanted to know what was the feedback from the community?
More just interest in what the intent of the project was, and if we were providing a buffer between the townhomes and the existing lots, which we are. If we could go back to the map, we see a large tree save area in between most of those homes and the parking lot preserved. The other request that the community had was that we meet with Councilwoman Johnson before coming to our meeting, which we did a few weeks ago on a phone call and talk through the project. I did also want to note and reiterate we are contingent and acknowledge we're contingent on the Prosperity Ridge Road extension and utility improvements of that project, and no, we would not be able to move forward until that access point would be in place, since we are not requesting any additional curb cuts or saving curb cuts along Prosperity Church Road that exists today.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff or the petitioner? Mr. Phipps?
Speaking of the Prosperity Ridge Road extension, what is the projected timeline for completion of that particular road extension?
My understanding is they are currently either getting ready to or have made a first submittal of those plans. As it relates to those plans, it's done by another development team, but the phase one of their project would be the Prosperity Ridge Road extension and the utilities along it, separate from any quote-unquote on-site development. They've got some townhomes planned, an apartment pad planned along that property, as well as the rest of the mixed-use development. But for now, they're either in or will be in for first review of their plans, and call it 4 to 6 months for approval process, and then the start of that project. And I would assume that project will take anywhere from 6 months to a year to construct.
So then you're thinking then that, because you indicated that you would not start your project until that project is complete, so at the outside, your plan for development starting would be what, 2 years from now?
I would say approximately a year from now. They could start at risk from a standpoint of, if I'll use an example of if curb is in place and they're working on paving or such, I could see them starting knowing that the improvements are underway and utilities are in, and a good amount of that work has happened. So I would respond just a little different than we're waiting until that's in place to, I think, just minimizing a risk if that project were to stall, because all of our access and some of the utilities will come from that project. We want to make sure that they have a good feeling that is actually occurring and will be in place by the time they start construction.
Thank you.
Mr. Brazil and Mr. Patton, I think that Mr. Holcomb just explained or described the development around that highway and as well as the schedule for that highway. Could you please provide this, that information to the full council as a part of the follow-up report, so that we all have the same information and the same, not that I couldn't catch all of it, but if there are already permitted and land use plans around and development plans, as well as the Prosperity Church project as well. Ms. Ajmira?
Yes, so I was just going to ask for that information, but I do have a follow-up question, Madam Mayor, here. So this project's timeline, from what I understand, is contingent upon the other infrastructure project. Am I correct, Mr. Patton?
Their access is based off of that construction of Prosperity Ridge Road extension, and so once that construction is underway and in place, they can then start their project to gain access to develop the townhomes that are being proposed here under this petition. So yeah, there is a relationship between them. It's just dependent on the timing of once that section of road gets done, when they can start construction to tie into it and get access.
Got it, but our approval is not contingent upon this adjacent property's timeline, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that has no bearing on it.
Oh, well, another question. So I see this one, so the petitioner is under contract, so they're not the property owner. So I guess, is the sale subject to rezoning approval?
That I would defer to Mr. Holcomb.
And I apologize, I don't have that answer. And if the developer isn't signed up to talk, we can follow up and get you that information offline, but I don't have that answer today.
Yes, if you could provide that in a follow-up report, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So any further questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Driggs.
All right. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
The next item is petition 29, and I just wanted to say that the next through, if I say this correctly, Mr. Pettin, tell me that 29 through 33 are all conventional hearings, and so we can, there'll not be conditional issues to deal with. These are people just asking for a district. So let's start off with the first one, item 29, petition 2021-070 from the City of Charlotte, our Aviation Department, for approximately 44.6 acres located north of McAlpine Drive, and it's in District 3. The current zoning is single-family residential airport noise overlay. The proposed zoning is general industrial airport noise overlay. Staff recommends approval of this petition. So we will have a brief overview from Mr. Pettin, and then Stuart Hare from Aviation is here as well. I don't know if Mr. Hare is going to have a presentation or not, but after that we will have questions. So, Mr. Pettin.
Thank you. 2021-070 is just under 45 acres, about 44.6, off of McAlpine Drive, east of Joy Lane, west of Bean Road. The existing zoning of this parcel is R3. It does have the airport noise overlay as well as, and then the proposed zoning is I2 industrial, and that would also carry that airport noise overlay with it. The adopted future land use is from the Southwest District Plan that was adopted back in 1991. I think that's one of our oldest plans on file that does recommend institutional uses for the majority of the site. That recommendation came as it was owned by the city, and then a portion of the site is within the FEMA floodplain is recommended for a greenway use, and then a small portion of the site is recommended for office, business park, industrial uses by the West Side Strategic Plan that was adopted in 2000. As mentioned, staff does recommend approval of this petition. It is conventional, so there are no conditions to work through, no outstanding issues. It is inconsistent with the institutional land use for most of the site as per the Southwest District Plan, but it is consistent with the remaining portion recommended for office, business park, industrial land uses found in the West Side Strategic Plan. As mentioned, Stuart Hare is on the call with us this evening to answer any questions. We'll be happy to take any that you might have as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettin. Mr. Hare, were you going to speak or just address any questions?
I'm just here to address any questions, no presentation.
Okay. Does council have any questions? Mr. Winston?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just got some feedback from some folks in the community concerned about not necessarily the rezoning in itself, but with the conventional nature of an I2 rezoning of this size. There's a lot that can happen there without without any kind of oversight. So is there anything more that we can say about what we or the airport intends to do with this piece of property, this area?
I'll defer some of that to Stuart, just to let you know, I think we did discuss at length some of those same concerns about having just a conventional I2. I think there are some challenges in terms of how the property then gets turned around for market with possible tenants. Again, I think I'll let Stuart kind of talk through what their process is on putting those properties up for future sale or development. But it was something we did discuss as far as conventional versus conditional, but I know there are some challenges with that, just given the process that the airport goes through, and I'll turn it over to Stuart to kind of talk through that a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that, Dave, and I appreciate the feedback, Councilmember Winston. Completely understand where the community is coming from with those concerns, and conventional rezonings versus conditional really do have a whole different set of decision processes and concerns as we think about the development in this space. As y'all may be familiar, we did rezone property to the west of this approximately 2 years ago now to a conventional I2 rezoning class. And we have taken that property through a request for information process and then a request for proposal process. And through that RFP process, we have identified a potential developer for the site and are in final negotiations with that developer to reuse the site. It was identified that they needed a little bit more land to have the maximum good effect out of their development plan. And so we plan in probably the October 25th meeting to bring to y'all a request for council action that would allow us to sell the site to the west that was rezoned 2 years ago, and a portion of this rezoning that we are in front of you tonight on. We do plan to ask that rezoning, that request for council action, as I said, on the October 25th, and would be able to go into the whole development plan for it at that point.
So you kind of segued into a follow-up question that I had, being that these I2 zones are so vast and really some of our oldest zoning districts. Obviously, we're under kind of a different paradigm. We're in a transitional period. If the city, if and when the city does sell this property or these I2 properties, would that conventional nature of the land use remain, or are we going to have the opportunity or the ability to look at it from a conditional standpoint?
So we would be bringing y'all a specific sale of the property that does have a prescribed site plan attached to it, and would be able to talk more about that site plan at that point.
So what I'm hearing is that the land use would remain the same, but we would potentially, from an economic development standpoint, we can insert ourselves into the deal. But from a land use standpoint, the status quo would remain the same as a conventionally rezoned I2 property in perpetuity until the potential future owner or ourselves decide to change that.
Right. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to learning more about what we're doing over there. I know that there'll be one last question, Mr. Pettin or Mr. Jayova. I know that there are a few homes over there that are probably would be considered naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAHs. Again, just as we kind of are transitioning and thinking about the way we're looking at land use, we've talked about I2, or industrial zonings near residentials. I don't know if we particularly asked ourselves, what do we think about industrial zones encroaching on NOAH properties? Is that something that we've thought about or considered? Getting guidance for how we deal with that? Yes or no? We haven't. It's a no. It's no problem.
Yeah, I don't, that wasn't necessarily, didn't come up as too much of the conversation here. We did mention just the industrial next to some of this residential. I don't think it came up in terms of the residential being NOAH housing or what guidance we would get for that. But I think we just talked about the general outcome of the industrial rezoning next to that residential properties that are out there currently. I don't know, Ty, if there was anything else from housing enabled services or anything that's been discussed in that kind of context.
No, nothing, but can also add that in the petition analysis, we did include that template on the 2040 plan, and you notice that where housing is concerned, we did not check anything. I don't really know how many single-family homes currently exist on the site. My assumption, though, is that by the time we come back to you, like Stuart is saying, at some point in the future, we may be able to fill in more of that information for you. It's something we definitely will keep in mind.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hare or Mr. Patton? If there are no other questions.
Motion to close.
We have a motion to close. And a second. All right. Any discussion? All right, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? And now Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is item number 30, rezoning petition 2021-073 by NRP Properties for approximately 3 acres located on the northwest intersection of South Tryon and Trades Park Court. The current zoning is light industrial. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development, community center. Staff recommends approval of the petition. And we have two speakers, Mr. Carmichael and Mr. Moshizuki. So with that, Mr. Patton.
Madam Mayor, 2021-072, as just under 3 acres on Tryon Street and Trade Park Court, as mentioned. The current zoning is I-1 light industrial, and the proposed zoning is TODCC, which is Transit Oriented Development Community Center. Adopted future land use from the New Bern Station Area Plan does recommend office and industrial warehouse distribution uses for this site. It is in an area where you do have some TOD transition, or TOD has transitioned into this area with TODCC, TODTR, as well as UC in the general area, just kind of north and south of the site along Tryon Street, up against the rail line. So staff did feel that it was, while it was inconsistent, it was within that half-mile walk of the New Bern Station and just over a half mile of Stanley Park. So that TODCC district was an appropriate district as we continue to see that type of development in this general area. This is another conventional petition, so no outstanding issues or conditions. And we'll be happy to take questions following Mr. Carmichael's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council and Zoning Committee. I'm John Carmichael. With me tonight is Jason Mokizuki of NRP Properties. Next slide. As Mr. Pettin said, the site contains about 2.9 acres. It's located on the west side of South Tryon Street between Trade Park Court and Herman Avenue. It's just to the north of Clanton Road, as you can see from this map. Next slide. This is an aerial photograph of the site, or tax map rather. Clanton Road is to the south, and you can see the site outlined in green on the west side of South Tryon Street. Next slide. The site's within a half mile of the New Bern transit station. The green lines reflect the walking, the way you would walk to the station from the site. Next slide. The site is currently zoned I-1, as Mr. Pettin indicated. The request is to rezone the site to Todd CC to accommodate uses allowed in the Todd CC district. On the site, you can see there's industrial zoning to the east and north, Todd zoning also to, I guess, to the southeast, and then there's BD zoning to the west. There's some Meadow zoning to the northwest, and then south of Clanton Road, there's some Todd zoning as well. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have. We appreciate the plain staff's favorable recommendation, and we certainly appreciate your consideration.
No questions?
Can you all hear me?
I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion over the motion? So with that, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
I'm going to have to wait. Mr. Driggs, I'm going to come back to you, Ms. Ajmira. Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Ajmira.
Can you hear me?
I couldn't see you. We just had, it was just a glitch. Don't worry about it. Just, Ms. Ajmira?
Okay.
Ms. Ajmira, could you say yes again, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And we're doing the best we can with what we got right now, okay? All right, Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, so the next item is item number 31. Petition 2021-073 by Period Design Concepts for approximately half acre located in south of Roswell's Ferry Road. It's in District 2. The current zoning is neighborhood business pedestrian overlay. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development community center pedestrian overlay. Staff recommends approval of this petition. And in this petition, there are no speakers, so we'll hear from the staff, and then you can have questions.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-073 is just about a half acre. It's off Roswell's Ferry as well as North State Street, just west of West Trade Street. As mentioned, currently zone B1. There's a pedestrian overlay currently on the site. The proposed zoning would be for TODCC. Pedestrian overlay would still be intact on the site as well. Adopted future land use from the West End Land Use and Pedscape Plan does recommend multifamily, office, and retail land uses for the site. The site is also within a quarter mile of a transit stop along the Gold Line, so it is applicable for that TOD CC district that they are proposing. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. It is conventional, so there are no outstanding issues or conditions. As mentioned, it is consistent with the mixed-use land use recommendation for this area for the West End Land Use and Pedscape Plan, and it is within quarter-mile walking distance from a Lynx Gold Line transit stop, and it's also less than 300 feet from the West Trade Roswell's Ferry CNIP-funded 5 Points Pedestrian Plaza, which is set to open in November 2021. So with that, as you mentioned, those speakers, so staff will be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Eggleston?
Yeah, I don't know who I'm saying this to because there's no one on the call representing the petitioner, but if they happen to be watching, as conventional, and they're not committing to anything with a conventional petition, but looking at the photograph, I hope that they'll consider reusing what looks to be a kind of a cool old auto service station. There's a lot of examples in West and East Charlotte of those being repurposed into really neat adaptive reuse projects, so I hope that that's part of their plan.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion to close. A second. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Sajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, the next item on our agenda is item 32. It's a petition 2021-074 by Ardent Acquisitions for approximately 10.5 acres located on the west side of South Boulevard in District 3. The current zoning is general business. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development neighborhood center. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and I believe that we have two speakers, John Carmichael and Tyson Riley, ready to present after the staff presentation. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Pettin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-074 is just over 10.5 acres on South Boulevard, just east of Old Pineville Road and south of Archdale Drive. Currently, the property is zoned B2. The proposed zoning is for TOD-NC, Neighborhood Center. Adopted future land use from Tybola and Archdale Transit Station Area Plan does recommend office and retail uses for the site. It is in an area you can see where you've got TOD mixed as well as retail and other TOD uses kind of in that general vicinity along South Boulevard and Old Pineville. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. It is another conventional, so no outstanding issues or conditions to discuss. While it is inconsistent with the recommendation for office retail uses, it is just over a half mile to the Archdale station and approximately 3/4 of a mile to the Ironwood station on the Lynx Blue Line. Directly north of the site, we do have TOD-CC zoning, and then the TOD-NC zoning applies standards and regulations to create that kind of form and intensity, as well as that transition from the CC that we have just north of the site. So staff felt it was an appropriate use of TOD, and again, we do recommend approval. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council and the zoning committee, I'm John Carmichael here on behalf of Ardent Acquisitions, and Tyson Riley, the petitioner, is here as well. Next slide. As Mr. Pettin stated, the site contains just under 10.6 acres located on the west side of South Boulevard between Old Pineville Road and South Boulevard, south of Wisteria Drive and south of Archdale Drive. Next slide. That's an aerial of the site, as you can see. Next slide. It's just over half a mile from the Archdale Transit Station. You can see to simply walk up to the north on South Boulevard to Archdale and then take a left and you would be at the transit station. Next slide. The site is currently zoned B2 and the request is to rezone the site to Todd NC. There's Todd zoning to the north, south, and northwest as well. Next slide. And the purpose, once again, would be to accommodate uses allowed in the Todd NC zoning district on the site. Tyson and I are happy to answer any questions that we are able to answer. We appreciate the staff's favorable recommendation, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Carmichael? No questions?
Motion to close the public hearing?
We have a motion to close the public hearing. I can't say all in favor anymore. All right, so we'll start with, do we have a second?
Yes, Driggs.
All right, Mr. Driggs. Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, the next item is item 33, petition 2021-076 by White Point Partners, approximately 5.7 acres, located on the southeastern intersection of South Tryon and East Peterson Drive. The current zoning is general industrial, transit supportive optional pedestrian overlay district, office, and single-family residential. The proposed zoning is transit-oriented development neighborhood center pedestrian overlay district. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and we have the staff presentation, followed by Mr. Colin Brown, Brittany Peter, and Jay Lavelle. Mr. Pettin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-076 is 5.74 acres. It's off of East Peterson Drive, South Tryon Street, located in that area off Yancey Road. As mentioned, the current zoning has several districts on it. I-2 with transit supportive overlay, transit supportive optional, O2 office, and R8 single family residential. The proposed zoning is to consolidate all three of those zoning districts into the TOD NC district. The adopted future land use from the Scaly Barks Transit Station Area Plan does recommend office, industrial, warehouse distribution, as well as residential uses up to 8 dwelling units an acre for the site. As mentioned, this is just for a TOD NC. You can see we do have some existing TOD zoning in the general area along East Peterson as you get closer to Old Pineville. We just had a petition just south of this that's zoned, was zoned I-2 going to a TOD district as well. So certainly seeing some of that transition down the NC Road and East Peterson on South Tryon. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. It is within a half-mile walk from the Scaly Bark Station. And that NC district can be applied within 1 mile of that rapid transit station or within a half mile of an existing streetcar stop, so it would be applicable. And again, it seems like that, as staff had mentioned, there was a good continued transition of the TOD district in this area. We recommend approval and we'll be happy to take any questions following any presentation by the petitioner. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown? Is Mr. Brown or Brittany Peter? Oh, we're seeing someone, there's a PowerPoint coming up.
Madam Mayor, council members, Colin Brown on behalf of the petitioner. Ms. Lenz was married over the weekend and is now Ms. Peter, so she is taking her break tonight. Jay Lavelle from White Point may be on. Or
Wait a minute, did you just say she was taking a break?
Break
She
or
got
honeymoon?
married? Really? Mr.
I
Brown,
hope
you've been married too long.
You're such a romantic.
Where is the romance in that statement? Okay, sorry.
Son got
let's
married over
proceed.
the
Mr.
weekend,
Brown?
and he is not on any zoning call, I can tell you that.
Mr. Brown.
Well, thank you. I'm sure she'll.
Did we lose you,
I think
Mr.
we
Brown?
scared him off.
That's what happens to guys like that.
He's calling Brittany. Okay, there we are.
There we go. White Point Partners, big on adaptive reuse, have done many of our kind of premier adaptive reuse projects in the area, including Bowers Fibers, which is right down the street from this on the other end of Yancey. So they're active in this community. As Dave mentioned, we're seeing, as y'all know, if you go down there, a lot of this has occurred. We've seen a lot of redevelopment, sometimes under existing zoning. Just south of the site, we've had some TOD. And so the idea is that we're going to bring these in to the TOD NC. As you know, a community meeting is not required for this conventional. However, we did host a community meeting with both in-person and online participation. We had several neighbors attend. Again, that wasn't required. I didn't want to show up tonight and have a lot of neighbors show up and say what's going on. So our biggest concern was this piece of residential down Peterson and any concerns they may have. I think generally the consensus is most folks there are reading the tea leaves and seeing that this more intensive development is valuable for their properties. So we do not know of any opposition, and can't go into site plan details, but again, TOD as proposed, we have hosted a community meeting and we're happy to have staff support.
All right, are there any questions for the petitioner or staff?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. So Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmir? I need to pull that deck up. Hold on, we just got to pull up. There we go. Here we go. Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. So the next item on our agenda is item number 34. Petition 2021-077 by Lucerne Capital Partners for approximately 3 acres located at the northeastern intersection of Research Drive and West W.T. Harris Boulevard. The current zoning is neighborhood business conditional. The proposed zoning is research conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of issues related to transportation. So with that, we have speakers Bridget Grant and Frank Forte following the staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-077, just over 3 acres on Harris Boulevard and Research Drive. Currently, it's zoned B1 conditional. The proposed zoning is for RE3, which is research conditional. The adopted future land use from the University Research Area Plan 2010 does call for office and retail for the site. The proposal associated with this petition is for up to 152 multifamily dwelling units in one building. There is a provision that if those multifamily units aren't developed, the site can continue to be used as an EDEE use. That's what's currently out there on the site right now. There is a structured parking facility included as part of the proposal. It does commit to providing a 12-foot multi-use path and 8-foot planting strip alongside Research Drive, as well as 2 pedestrian connections from Research Drive. Also commits to a financial contribution towards a pedestrian crossing at W.T. Harris Boulevard. Does maintain that 75-foot setback along Research Drive, as well as the 125-foot setback along West W.T. Harris Boulevard. Also includes 5,000 square feet of open space with benches, seat walls, landscaping, and other amenities. Building height would be limited to 75 feet, and the proposal would also include standard architectural details such as building elevations, different materials, blank wall expanses, and the normal architectural items that we usually see for these multifamily projects. Just next door to this project, we did see another rezoning just recently that converted the extended stay units that were on the parcel adjacent into residential multifamily units as well. So we are seeing a little bit of some residential multifamily infill here on Research Drive. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. As mentioned, we do have some outstanding issues related to transportation to work through. It is inconsistent with that recommendation in the plan for office and retail, but staff does feel like we are continuing to get an opportunity to expand some housing choices and allow for a mix of land uses in this area. and we would get an opportunity to increase that housing supply within that area of University City. So with that, staff will be happy to take any questions following the petitioner team's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Grant?
Good evening, Mayor Lyles, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Bridget Grant, land use consultant with Moore & Van Allen. Pleased to be here tonight with Frank Forte with Lucerne, as well as our team members, Axiom Architecture and DPR. As Dave mentioned, the site is on the corner of Research Drive and W.T. Harris. It's the site of the former Macaroni Grill. You can see where we are in the broader context at the intersection of Harris and Research Drive. The existing building is sort of set in deep into the site, so you really don't see it from the intersection when you're approaching the research park. We're proposing to allow a change from B1 CD to RE3 to allow that 152 residential development. It's a signature corner building with structured wrap parking, and we're able to maintain larger buffers that are consistent with the University Research Park area. This is an elevation. We've been working with UCP, and we've established this concept with wrap parking and a signature building that meets the goals and objectives of UCP. We know we'll continue to work with them as we evolve the elevations. This isn't something that we've included in the rezoning, but we did want to share these conceptual images with you. And with that, we're happy to answer any of your questions.
All right, are there any questions for staff or the petitioner? All right, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. This question is for staff. Can you tell us, just for the record, what the impact on the school, the surrounding school or the area schools will be if this petition's approved?
Yeah, let me take one quick look here at the staff report for those numbers. Looks like from the memo from CMS, the proposed students would, I guess, generate 19 new students. Since it's zoned commercially now, there wouldn't have been any student generation from the site, so it would be a net increase of 19. And so the two schools impacted would be Governor's Village. That would go from, I guess, 101% to 102%, and then Julius L. Chambers High School would remain at 126% capacity. And that's increased capacity over utilization without mobile classroom units. So, but those were the two schools, and again, this project would generate 19 new students.
So when you say 126% at Julius Chambers High School, that means 126% of capacity, so over capacity, right?
Yeah, that doesn't include the mobile units. I think that they use to offset some of those capacity issues, but we can get some clarification from CMS on how that's calculated out.
So I'm torn. You know, District 4 is the district of the jobs. So exciting. And this is in the research park. So it's close to employers. It's going to reduce traffic if people are able to take alternative transportation, like walk or ride a bike to work. But last week, if we watched the news, we heard certain high schools at the top of our news because of violence in these predominantly black schools. The narrative was that, you know, there was a lot of violence going on in the school. Fortunately, it turns out the arrest for that very high-profile murder of that baby, they were adults, but we don't know what else is coming. But in watching that as a member of the public, there were like 4 or 5 high schools, and Julius Chambers was one of them. So how do we reconcile, you know, continual overcrowding of schools and not considering that? It's just hard. I mean, and I'd like to know, what does it take for a new school to be built, or is our intergovernmental committee working together to discuss this? I'd also ask for staff if we could have a report on the effect our recent petitions, I'll say in District 4, I ask for myself specifically, I don't know if the other council members would like the same, But the recent approvals in the last year, what impact has that had on the schools? If we're at 126% in this report, how many petitions do we have pending in District 4 or that have been approved in the last year? So I just really think that we as council members, when a tragedy happened like what happened last week, it's all hands on deck. It's a city, county, school district, community, church, parents, I mean, everything. We all have to be engaged in doing what we can in our decisions. So I'm concerned, and I know this is not Lucerne Capital Partners' responsibility. I met with them. I like the petition. But when I see Julius Chambers High School at 126% of capacity, and last week their name was in the top story on news, and it may not have been directly associated, but that's what we said. That's what was on the news conference, that it was related to this school. So now we have to take a step back and really start to look at this. You know, Mayor Pro Tem talked about stormwater and sidewalks, and I look forward to solving the problem, but this one is concerning at 126% of a school that we know 70% of our black children are failing. We can't keep doing this. So that's all I have to say. And I like the petition, and I'm sorry, Bridget, and I've spoke to you and to the developer. It's nothing to do with that, but we just can't keep ignoring the lack of infrastructure, the overcrowding schools, and the burden that the growth is having. Like, what do we do?
Ms.
When
Johnson,
do we say enough building?
Ms. Johnson, I think that you are so right. The violence and the need to have to say something about our schools being a place that we're concerned for people to be safe is a very difficult issue. I would say to you that it is a complex, and you know this, it's a very complex issue. Some of the strongest schools in the state are overcrowded much more than Chambers. It's about what goes on inside the school walls, who's in charge, who attends, all of these things that are much more complex than just being overcrowded, because you can have an excellent overcrowded school. But what's the leadership like? What is what are the courses that are offered? How do you assign whom to what school? So I would say that we should have this conversation, because it is a difficult conversation to have, but one that's necessary. And I think that we have to look at it more than just how big or how many people go to a school, but to actually figure out, well, why are some schools more successful than others, even though they're as overcrowded, and what goes on in those situations. So I completely endorse what you're saying. I think it's a little bit more difficult because of the responsibilities for funding and policy are very different. The state and the county fund, the policy is developed by the local school board. So we sometimes, or at least I speak for myself, I look at it and I think, well, if I did this, and then I realize that a lot of people have worked really hard and they've thought about these things. So I think we could start out with how do we learn what's going on in our schools as a council and where we can have impact. And I think that that is a valid and needed. And I really appreciate your expression of empathy and understanding for people in our school system and what they have to deal with, and especially for our kids. So thanks for that. I think we just have to figure out a path. Mr. Eggleston?
Thank you. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something here. What I'm looking at and what I think I heard Dave say, but I'll ask him to confirm, is that the school is already at 126%, and this isn't projected to add any students to Chambers. Is that correct, Dave, or is that a typo?
Yeah, that's correct. It's at 126% without mobile units. and it would stay at that rate even with the 19 students that could potentially be generated by this project. So there is no increase. It's already at that number. And again, that's without the utilization of mobile units.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Phipps?
Thank you, Mayor. I've eaten many a good dinner at this macaroni grill, and I hate to see it go. So how many proposed stories do we have in this proposal that you have with this 152-unit one building?
Thank you, Councilman Phipps, and likewise, I've had many meals in that location when I've done work in the area. We are anticipating it to be a 5-story building. Again, the idea is to create a signature building on the corner going into the research park.
And my other question is, would you characterize the market as soft for this use in as much as you are proposing to reintroduce the site as an EDEE facility? I don't understand are you gonna knock down the current Macaroni Grill building and build this facility, but if you don't lease up the units, you're gonna convert it to this entertainment district eating establishment or whatever? How does that work?
We are essentially leaving in the ability that in the interim, before the building is developed, we have the ability to, the current Macaroni Grill is vacant. We would have the ability to operate it as a restaurant if we chose to go that route while we were developing the plans and until such time that this residential structure is developed on the site. It's not both of those uses, it's only one.
So essentially, you're going to test the market valuability for the units while you are planning for it, but still maintain the Macaroni Grill as a restaurant?
We have confidence in multifamily in this area. It's building in a little flexibility because there is an existing building on the site. And if a different tenant were to come in, we just thought we would go ahead and retain the right to use it as a restaurant as this plan evolves. But we have confidence in the multifamily in this location.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Phipps. Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have a follow-up to Ms. Johnson's comments here. Someone who had worked in this area in Research Park at one of the financial institutions. And this is a complex petition because we are trying to balance the supply of housing close to the employment centers, such as Research Park that employs thousands and thousands of people, while trying to balance the infrastructure in schools and so on. There is no easy solution, unfortunately. But we do really need housing supply close to the employment centers. I remember when I worked there in Research Park, there is not something that you can walk to in terms of apartments. There have been apartments that have been built across from Trader Joe's area, but that's about it. That's nearly nowhere where the demand is for that area. And I have seen pedestrian crossing really busy streets of W.T. Harris going from Autumn Park, those areas, to come to the Research Park so they can go to jobs. It's certainly difficult because there are no sidewalks off of W.T. Harris, which we have requested many, many times, and I know we have a huge backlog. But with development also comes sidewalk improvements close to the employment centers. So, I understand Ms. Johnson's concerns here around schools' capacity, but at the same time, I'm willing to support this because it develops our infrastructure further by private sector because of our backlog, and on top of that, it provides housing near job centers. So certainly a very difficult problem to solve, and there is no easy solution. So just wanted to provide my remarks on this as someone who has worked in Research Park for many years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ajmira. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I want to respond to Ms. Johnson's comments as well, because we've been having this discussion for years about school overcrowding, and no, the city council can't do a lot about that. But yes, we have to work with our CMS colleagues to understand their 10-year plan. I don't know if Taiwo can comment about how the comprehensive plan dealt with that, but I would ask council, as an at-large member, I'd ask council to refrain from just looking at one area unless we can really show that overcrowding is directly tied to violence in a school. But we had one hearing tonight in Mr. Driggs' district, the one city of Charlotte, and it references our Drake-Held, that's 164% overcrowded. We have another one coming up in Mr. Bakari's district, that's South Mac is 134% overcrowded. So every one of our high schools, all of our schools are overcrowded. And the bigger question is, how do we distribute growth in a way that works for us, but also works for our schools? Because we do say it isn't so much about, well, it is about who's at that school. And so we can't make an assumption that just more students adding to the problem, but adding poverty to a high poverty school could be is a problem. So I just think it's a different conversation that we have to have as an overarching conversation, and maybe as part of our the mapping process or the UDO process, we really get more information about what does CMS say when they get asked about these petitions. We just get told the facts, but we don't really get told much about what their 10-year plan is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bakari?
I just wanted to add and agree with Councilman Phipps that the loss of a Macaroni Grill is indeed something that I will be lamenting.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe it's time to close this public hearing. So moved.
I just have one quick
I'm
comment.
sorry. Wait a minute. Mr. Winston?
I came in late. I apologize. Ms. Johnson mentioned the work in Intergovernmental Relations Committee. It is something that we talk about, something that we work on. But in fact, I will say to Ms. Johnson and all the colleagues, I am currently talking to Commissioner Jarrell and School Board Member De La Hara to figure out how, in response to last week in general, how can we be more responsive and work together on some action now. So Ms. Johnson, if you are inclined to do the work, I'm happy to bring you into this and any of the colleagues. We're looking to meet this week to figure some things out. And I look forward to you circling up. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion to close.
Motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second,
All right.
Driggs.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Okay, guys, I don't know what happened again, Donata. I'm losing the pictures again. So I'm going to go to Mr. Driggs.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, I know that I've already asked you, but please say yes again. Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to make sure we follow the guidelines that we have under the emergency order, that in order to vote, you must be on screen. We have to be able to see you. All right, the next item is item number 34. I'm sorry, we just did 34. Let's go to number 35, petition 2021-076 by M.I. Homes of Charlotte for approximately 14.6 acres located on the south side of Ridge Road. It's in District 4. Current zoning is single-family residential. The proposed zoning is multifamily residential conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of issues in site and building design. In this case, we have four speakers: John Carmichael, Eddie Moore, Morgan Rochelle, Jeremy Horton, following the staff presentation. So, Mr. Pettin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-078. It's 14.62 acres on Ridge Road. It's just west of Ballard Creek and north of I-485. The existing zoning on the site is R3. Proposed zoning is R8 multifamily. You can see we've got that zoning district in close proximity along Ridge Road. The adopted future land use from the Prosperity Hucks plan calls for residential uses at 4 dwelling units to the acre for this site. The proposal with this petition is for up to 73 attached townhome units. Would commit to an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along the site's frontages on Ridge Road. Would connect the site's internal streets to the 3 existing adjacent public street stubs within the general vicinity. So continuing to build out the street network in this area along Ridge Road. Also provides Class C buffers to abutting single-family homes and limits building height to 48 feet. Also architectural standards for primary building materials, covered front stoops or porches, which would be attached to each unit, as well as blank wall provisions. Building in garages for each unit and roof slope design details have been included. Staff has recommended approval for this petition. We do have some outstanding issues related to site and building design to work through. The petition is consistent with the residential recommendation, but just inconsistent with a slight increase from the 4 DUA that's recommended. This petition comes in at 4.99. Again, when we went back to that zoning slide where we saw the R8 in close proximity, a lot of the corridor along Ridge Road has been developed with some single family attached at about a 4 to 5 dwelling unit per acre. It's actually helped us build out a pretty strong internal road network where you can essentially get from a lot of these interconnected subdivisions without having to even get back on Ridge Road once everything is done and completed. So we felt that was a good a continuation of the projects that we've seen that have gone R8, but at that density capped at around 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. This does fall in line with that. So staff was comfortable with this and did recommend approval, and we'll be happy to take questions following the petitioner's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council and the zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael here on behalf of the petitioner. With me tonight are Morgan Rushnell and Jeremy Horton of MI Homes and Eddie Moore of the Gaddams. As Mr. Payton stated, the site contains 14.6 acres. It's located on the south side of Ridge Road between Cooper's Ridge Lane and Shelley Avenue. Next slide. The site's currently, there are 2 single-family homes on the site, and then there's a mechanics facility on the site as well. Next slide. And you can see the automobiles a little better in the zoomed-in version of the text map. Next slide. The site, as Mr. Payton stated, is currently zoned R3. The request is to rezone the site to R8 MFCD. Next slide. And the purpose of the rezoning request is to accommodate the development of up to 73 townhome units on the site. Density would be just under 5 units an acre at 4.99 dwelling units per acre. Next slide. Next slide. This is the rezoning plan. As you can see, it calls for townhomes. The site would be accessed from Ridge Road to the north. There would be an 8-foot planting strip and a 12-foot multi-use path along the site's frontage on Ridge Road. There would be a left turn lane on Ridge Road into the site. Access would also be by way of connections to the 3 existing stub streets as required under the subdivision ordinance. There would be a good bit of green space and open space. The site would be well buffered. The petitioner would dedicate right-of-way along Ridge Road. There are architectural standards that are a part of the conditional rezoning plan. They include things as a prohibition on vinyl siding. However, you could use vinyl windows, doors, soffits, and trim. And there are other architectural standards, once again, that are part of the rezoning plan. There are 2 outstanding site plan issues, but they're relatively minor and will be addressed this week. We appreciate the planning staff's favorable recommendation, and we appreciate your consideration. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for the petitioner or the staff? Ms. Johnson?
Yes, this question is for the staff. Mr. Payton, what impact will this have on the schools? Can you give us that information?
Yeah, let me pull that one up for this petition as well. This is 078. That up here for you.
I have it as well.
Yeah, go ahead, if you want to jump in, I can pull up the memo.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, Councilmember Johnson. According to the CMS report, the current, if you develop under the R3 zoning, it would generate 22 students. Under the proposed zoning, it would generate 13 students. And what CMS has concluded is there'd be no net increase in the number of students generated from existing zoning to proposed zoning. The schools, Parkside Elementary would go from 67% to 69%, and then Ridge Road and Mallard Creek would remain the same, but they are both over capacity. Ridge Road is at 125, and Mallard Creek High would remain at 121. But there would be over development under the existing zoning, there would be a decrease of about 9 students.
Okay, so Ridge Road remains at 125% and Mallard Creek remains at 121%, right? And that's with an additional.
Yes, ma'am.
That's with an additional 13 students. Is that right, Mr. Pettin?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Phipps?
Yeah, there's a considerable amount of construction going on along that Ridge Road corridor. What considerations have been taken into account for Ridge Road as a result of the cumulative impact of successive rezonings along the corridor? I don't know if CDOT would be in a position to weigh in on it, but apart from I can appreciate the fact that you said that interior to this site, connections have been made within these particular subdivisions to be able to move freely within the subdivisions. But I'm talking about once you get on Ridge Road, what's happening there along that corridor, or what is proposed to happen, or if it's just one of those things that's going to be outlying, just waiting for more development on those little 2-lane roads out there.
There are improvements, I think, along Ridge Road for each petition that's come in that we've seen that I kind of mentioned earlier. I'd be happy to coordinate with CDOT and try to put together a list of what's being done along Ridge Road that's associated with each of those petitions that have come on board, including this one, and we can provide that back to you in the follow-up report.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yep, no problem.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Ms. Ashmira.
Ms. Ashmira?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this question is for the staff, where it says here on the plan consistency that the proposed density of 4.99 dwelling units per acre is inconsistent with the recommended density of 4 DUA. So how many extra units we are looking at here?
So this petition came in at 4.99, so that I think total was 73 attached townhome units. I'm not sure, let me see what the acreage would be for that.
About 15 extra.
It's about 14 to 15.
Yep, exactly, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 14 or 15 extra units are built by going a little bit over that density of 4 DUA.
So with the 4 DUA, would that have required rezoning still? Yes, John says yes, he's nodding.
Yeah, to do an attached product, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Carmichael, would petitioner be willing to do 4 instead of 4.99?
You know, that's a question I'd have to talk to the petitioner about. I mean, I'm sure there are economic considerations that they have. They've worked through the process, and but I couldn't answer that tonight. I'd have to follow up with you on that.
Yes,
that's
because I do see where it says the approval of this petition will revise the adopted future land use as specified by the Prosperity Huts area plan, which was just adopted in 2015, from 4 DUA to 5 DUA for the site. So it's not, the plan is not outdated. I mean, it's fairly recent, 2015. So I'm just curious, is 15 units that important? I mean, that could be in our follow-up report. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Hearing no further questions, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Ajmer.
Okay, if we can pick the screen up so we can see people, that would be great. Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 36, rezoning petition 2021-080 by Apollo Holding Company for approximately 1.7 acres located on the eastern corner of the intersection of West Tyvola Road and the Potomac River Parkway. It's in District 3. The current zoning is mixed-use development district optional. The proposed zoning is mixed-use development district optional site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval upon resolution of issues related to transportation, technical revisions related to transportation and the environment. In this case, we have two speakers, Colin Brown, and Brittany will not be here to join us to speak tonight. So, Mr. Brown. All right, Mr. Pettin, and followed by Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-080, as mentioned, is on Tyvola Road. It's about 1.66 acres. You can see on the overall, there's two undeveloped pad sites on either corner of Potomac River Parkway and Spear Boulevard with West Tyvola. And those are the site that's closest to Potomac River Parkway is the one we're discussing this evening. The current zoning is MUD O. The proposed zoning is to take that MUD O and do a site plan amendment. The adopted future land use from the Southwest District Plan does recommend residential office retail land uses. That was amended by the original rezoning petition in 2007 and then again in 2018. The 2018 petition took the property on the right side of the screen or the plan right and already had added a drive-through for an EDE. This petition under 2021-080 will take the out parcel on the left side on Potomac River Parkway and also allow for a drive-through, allows up to 12,000 square feet of commercial uses that's entitled by the previous rezoning. Again, this would really just be to allow a drive-through on that out parcel that's on West Tyvola and Potomac River Parkway. We do maintain all the other entitlements and the optional provisions that were approved in that previous rezoning back in 2018. It commits to some of the same architectural standards that were approved previously in that 2018 petition, as well as screening of that drive-through service lane from view of the public street, which would be West Tyvola and Potomac River. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. As mentioned, we have a few outstanding issues related to transportation. They have requested technical revisions related to transportation and the environment to work through. It is consistent with the mixed use land use recommendation for this site. And again, staff does recommend approval, and we'll take any questions following Mr. Brown's presentation. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Brown?
Madam Mayor, Colin Brown on behalf of the petitioner. I think Dave's got it covered. This is a very simple application, but as y'all know, development at City Park has been a long time coming from the original master plan. The submarket, kind of tenanting it with retail tenants has been very challenging, and they've indicated a need for drive-through. A year or so ago, we came and added drive-throughs as a permitted use at this location, and that allowed Starbucks to come in and Panera to come in, which have been good users that have kind of energized the area. Same issue we've run into on this site is, and especially in light of COVID, it is even more important that they have additional accessibility. So as Dave mentioned, here's the current plan. It's got a drive-through here. The modification would be simply to allow kind of the twin site to have a drive-through use as well. Still have limitations, so we don't have the undesirable uses. So no convenience stores with gas, no car washes, no things like that. Keeping the same design standards. So we hope this is pretty straightforward.
All right, are there any questions of the staff or Mr. Brown? Mr.
Yes,
Phipps?
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
I have Mr. Phipps first, followed by Ms. Ajmira. Mr. Phipps?
Yeah, Mr. Brown, on this original rezoning back in 2018, do you recall the rationale for only allowing for one drive-through as part of the original rezoning?
Yeah, I worked on that, and I think we were, drive-throughs are always challenging. So we were trying to limit it and hoping that we could tenant the other side without a drive-through, but that has just not come to fruition.
Yeah, because I can recall a time, in the days of Deborah Campbell, where we tried to, limit the number of drive-throughs on a site. So with the addition of this one additional drive-through, how many drive-throughs are we talking about on this site? 3?
Well, on this site that we're talking about today, so if you're looking at this frontage, Mr. Phipps, there are 4 buildings. If currently 3 are allowed to have drive-throughs, if approved, the 4th would be as well.
So the 4th drive-through, Starbucks has a drive-through, you said Panera has a drive-through,
That's correct.
and this additional drive-through, what's that one associated with, if I may ask?
I think they're talking to Macaroni Grill about their concept, but I don't think we know yet.
A drive-through macaroni grill? Okay.
Messy.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know. A lot of drive-throughs. I have to think about it. Thanks.
I think the Mayor Pro Tem would have something to say about that as well.
And then, well, we were talking about this today, and I'm open to seeing what the market is saying right now, because there seems to be a lot more demand for drive-throughs, and some, like Bojangles on West Boulevard, is getting rid of all the, restaurant seating, and they're only doing drive-through. And if the demand is there because people don't want to sit down anymore, and they're giving up their parking lot for more drive-throughs, I think it's something we might need to revisit.
Same for financial institutions as well.
But I think it's interesting because if they're giving up more space inside of the building, then why can't they kind of adjust and make that kind of work? I know it's parking, but the lot is the size it is. It's the building and how you manage it, because you're giving up the square footage where people sat. And now you just need to drive a car through. I am more concerned, and we had this conversation, is that we put these drive-throughs where there are intersections and popular restaurants come and they back up all the way through an intersection. I was driving down Randolph Road at the Chick-fil-A at Cotswold, and I remember when everyone, or at least I don't know who else was there, I voted for that because the idea was that Cotswold the shopping center was going to develop as well as the drive-throughs. Now, all I see are the drive-throughs. So it's an interesting, and when we were having the 2040 plan, I remember Peter Pappas talking about the Peter Pappas retail, not the Peter Pappas housing, talked about, these drive-throughs require parking and drive-throughs now. I'm just wondering what the retail market's going to look like at some point, and I wonder if we should bank on more drive-throughs as a result of the change, when it ought to be about how the design works for me. So, okay, well, that's probably enough on drive-throughs. Ms. Ajmira.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a quick question. So this is from Mud O to Mud O site plan amendment. Is that just for additional drive-through?
That's right. We're just amending the site plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
And not to interject more on the drive-through, but our ordinance does define drive-through currently in a way so that the building also has to have at least 50 seats. So that's becoming a challenge here.
Right.
As you mentioned, if we go all drive-through, so to the mayor's point about how we design that's something we might ought to want to think through as well.
Okay. Any further comments? So with that, we'll have a motion to close.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 37, petition 2021-081 by Taylor Morrison for approximately 16 acres located in the southeast, southwest quadrants of West Mallet Creek Church and Senator Royal Drive. It's in District 4. The current zoning is research optional, and the proposed zoning is neighborhood services. Staff recommends approval of the petition upon resolution of issues around transportation. In this case, we have Mr. Brown back up for leading off the discussion from the petitioner after the staff has made their presentation. Mr. Patton.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-081. It's just under 16 acres, as mentioned, off Mallard Creek Road, Alexander Village Main Drive, as well as Senator Royale Drive. The current zoning is RE3 with some optional provisions. The proposed zoning is for neighborhood services. The adopted future land use from the University Research Park Area Plan does call for residential office retail up to 22 plus dwelling units per acre is the appropriate residential density listed in the plan. The proposal within this petition is to allow for up to 140 townhome units as well as 20,000 square feet of commercial uses. Does not allow things like car washes, gas stations, and automobile service stations. Does allow a maximum of 2 accessory drive-through service windows as we continue to have that conversation. Provides for an 8-foot sidewalk, an 8-foot planting strip along the site's frontage of Senator Royale Drive and Alexander Village Main Drive, as well as a 12-foot multi-use path along West Mallard Creek Church Road. We also have a CATS bus stop being provided along West Mallard Creek Church Road. A 3-foot masonry screen wall would be put in place for any accessory drive-through windows and stacking lanes. Also provides a minimum of 24,200 square feet of open space throughout the site. And architectural details for the townhomes that are being proposed. This was overall a mixed-use development. This was more of a retail-centric area. Again, that's been somewhat shifted with the retail sliding down to about 20,000 square feet, and then the townhomes being infilled around that, transitioning back to the apartments that are already in place. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. This has some outstanding issues related to transportation to work through. It is consistent with the University Research Park Area Plan for those recommendations of both residential office and retail uses. This would be up to, again, 140 single-family townhomes and 20,000 square feet. The density would be 8.79 units per acre, so it's well within that 22-plus DUA. So staff does recommend approval, and we'll be happy to take questions following Mr. Brown's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Thanks to Dave. We've got a presentation coming up. This one hits on several of the themes from tonight. Converting this from a straight commercial plan to residential means there will be some school impacts, albeit pretty small, in District 4. And we also have some drive-throughs. So as Dave mentioned, here is the current plan. So you can see pretty heavy conditional. As Jamira mentioned earlier, there is now demand for some housing in this research park area. The team has been working closely with the folks at University City Partners. This will have to go through their design review as well. So as Dave mentioned, kind of reducing that commercial square footage down to about 20,000 square feet, and then incorporating the townhome component. So Stiles would be developing the retail, and then Taylor Morrison would be handling the residential development. We think that comes together nicely. Have found good support from the folks at University City Partners. There's a couple things we're working through. We've had a couple changes as we've gotten more information about the location of that right-of-way. We have a couple adjustments that we will have to make following the hearing and work through with staff. Kind of has relocated a driveway in some location, moved the right-of-way over a bit, so we'll be working through those. And as we talked about this drive-through capacity, we are looking at one that could be for a popular coffee place. And so in order to accommodate the queues, one of the designs the petitioner has considered is a double lane at this location. And so we're working through how that impacts the buffer and how we still buffer that from the road. But we'll work that through with staff and University City Partners also, as they'll have some input on the design review. So that's where we are. Big picture again, transition from fully commercial to true mixed use with residential and retail. The school, there is a minor school impact we've talked about. Just to get in front of this, this would impact Mallard Creek Elementary, Ridge Road Middle, and Mallard Creek High. And we've talked about the capacities. The middle and high are over capacity, elementary is under capacity. This could put 6 students to the middle school and 4 students to the high school. Overall, we think that the positive of that is balanced by providing these different housing type, again, closely located to, the employment of the research park, and then some of the retail amenities that this is bringing along. Really goes to the goals of the 2040 plan. And if you see the attachment staff that's kind of checking boxes on things that are conforming to the 2040 plan, and this transition checks most of those.
All right, recognize Ms. Ashmira for questions for staff or the petitioner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is another research park housing. A couple of questions. I see here there is a public open space, and we do need more of that in the university area. What is the size of the public open space we are looking at here, Mr. Brown?
I don't have that exact dimension. That's something Matt Langston, our engineer, has just sent me a text, and we can get that to you in the follow-up report. That would be okay.
Yes, that's fine. So it's great that it's going to have enhanced gazebo, picnic tables, and a dog park. Okay. I do like that there is infrastructure commitment here. I'm trying to understand the architecture details here. Do you have that anywhere in your presentation? I did not see it, where it says garage doors visible from public.
I did not have them in our presentation. I tucked some here to the end of the presentation just to kind of show you what that looks like. So for your garage door question, sometimes you see just the solid panels garage doors. An upgrade for that are the ones with kind of the window and some features on them. So that's a look at these. Again, these will be reviewed, by the folks at University City Partners. So they'll get a look and some comments on that as well.
So I'm sorry, go back to the first slide that you brought up when I asked the question. Okay, so is this how it's going to look?
This would be the fronts. This would be the rears. Where the kind of front door, back door, garage.
Okay, so garage doors will be visible from the public or private streets. Is that correct? So this is what public will see.
Yeah, if they are visible from the streets, they get the little bit of kind of enhancement to them.
Okay, so is this going to be visible from the public site?
Some may, depending on, and I think Alan Curley from Taylor Morrison is on. Alan, if you would prefer to answer, but you can see here, Mrs. Mayor, some are oriented to the major streets. So the idea is that when you're coming into the research park, it's very important to University Partners that they don't get the look at garage doors. So the idea is that all of this kind of major entry faces the front look. As you come into the neighborhood, there may be some places where you can look in and see the rears of the units. But certainly we're kind of protecting Senator Royal, and all that has a frontage feel to it.
Got it. Yes, I guess that's what my concern was. As we are in the research park area, from the public street, what would be the view like? And if it's the garage view, I see that, I guess it will look more like it's a front, or at least it'll have windows and so on.
That's right. Now, and so on Senator Royal, when you come in, you don't see garage doors at all. They've got the design of the project. So what you're seeing is that front door look as you come into the community. The commitments on garage treatments are as you get into our development. We still got some commitments to have a better looking design there as well. This
Colin, I can
road
chime
here
in
that comes
if you'd
in has fronts.
What was that?
This is Matt Langston from Landworks. Colin, would you like me to chime in a little bit? Okay, sorry. Good evening, everybody. Matt Langston with Landworks Design Group. When we laid out this land plan, you can see there's a lot of street frontage, and these are rear-loaded townhomes, so the garage is on the back. And so we've oriented the front elevations of the buildings to the streets, Along a portion of Mallard Creek Church Road, we've got some side elevations that'll face, but the garage elevations will not be facing the streets. What Colin was saying is internally, like if you can see one maybe from a corner or something like that, there'll be some additional treatments to enhance the garages that might be minimally visible, but the primary elevations are front. And also to answer your question about open space, we've got a variety of open space locations around the site, and the total open space will be over 20,000 square feet.
So less than an acre?
That's about a half acre. We'll make the spaces larger. We just haven't gotten into the detailed design yet. And so what we try to do is give ourselves a little bit of elbow room. One of the sites has some topography, so there's going to be a retaining wall through part of it. We haven't completed the design yet. So we try not to overpromise and underdeliver.
Okay, so would that be part of the details when we approve this?
Yes, they're on page 3 of the rezoning plan sets and concepts of some of the larger open space areas.
Okay, so the commitment to the open space would be in the plan?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so half an acre for almost 16 acre development, is that correct?
That's correct. But like I said, what we've done, you can look at the site plan and, there'll be an area that is not occupied by vehicular space or buildings. And what we've done is pulled inboard just a little bit to identify the committed square footage. So I don't know if you can, you've got the drawings in your packet. You can see the concepts we've got on that sheet right there. Those are flanking Senator Royal Drive at Alexander Village, Maine.
Yeah, so that's a really small open space area for 16 acre development with all this gazebo, picnic tables, and a dog park. I would like to see more, but I'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to elaborate on the school impact again. Mr. Pettin, I'm looking at Ridge Road Middle to remain at 125% and Mallard Creek High to remain at 121%. So I wanted to know how those percentages are calculated. Does that include the 13 additional students from the petition just before last? Are we keeping cumulative totals? Because we're adding two different numbers, but keeping the percentage the same. So I would ask again for Taiwo, if I can have a report on how the schools are impacted or would be impacted based on pending petitions and approved petitions in the last year. And this is a concern because it's just like our traffic studies. We're not keeping cumulative totals. If one petition doesn't impact at 2,500, then we just say it's really no impact. When we know there's a cumulative effect, especially in areas like 3 and 4 and 2 in these high growth districts. And I don't make an apology for continuing to ask about the schools this week, because last week these schools were top story in the news. Related to the death of a 3-year-old child. So now it turns out that the arrests were 21-year-old, so may or may not have been directly related, but Mallard Creek and Julius Chambers and other schools, but specifically those two in District 4, were in the news every day last week. And perhaps I can't ignore that today and not ask these questions. So we talk about systemic changes. This is how you make systemic change, when each leader understands their role in the problem. So I'd like a report, if I can.
Can I just ask my colleague, I'm not sure I understand the connection on what you're trying to say, because.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
No, I want to know, because this is a concern, but to me it's a concern all over the city. So I want to know what the connection is, that that you're talking about, really, with these schools and the crimes they had, which are tragic, but I don't know, I just don't understand what that has to do with this.
70% of black children are failing in CMS.
But are you implying that this would add black children who are at a poverty level?
To predominantly black schools, if we know they're overcrowded and we continue to add more students and ignore the fact that they're overcrowded. Yes, overcrowding schools affects how a child learns. Teacher-student ratio affects how a child learns. So
I don't disagree with that.
So if we
know
know that the schools are overcrowded, and we keep saying, well, if we just, this one petition doesn't affect the schools. Well, how many of these petitions have we had? We had at least 2 in the last half an hour where the percentage hasn't changed.
I just don't disagree, but every single one we've had for the 6 years I've been on council involved putting more students into overcrowded schools. And we also say that if we add students of higher incomes, students of different races to sit next to other students, that changes the makeup of a school. And I don't know that we're looking at that in these developments. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to understand the connection.
Well, I know that I'm not wrong, and with all due respect, I would not want to sit here 6 years later and say that we've known that schools have been overcrowded and we're continuing to approve development. So I think that that's part of the problem. We have to make changes. Our children are failing. So, I mean, I'm sorry, maybe this is a conversation for later. Maybe it's because I went to that baby service. So if that doesn't change your life and change your perspective, then nothing will.
But let's get to the root of the problem.
The root of the problem is we're continuing to ignore stormwater, ignore overcrowded schools, ignore no sidewalks, no traffic, and it's not on this petitioner, it's on us. And we keep talking about it. When do we do something? And I don't apologize, but please understand, Colin, but these schools were top story in the news last week, and yet we continue talking about more development, more overcrowding, higher teacher-student or lower teacher-student ratio, and at some point we just have to make some tough decisions.
And I think that, Ms. Johnson, a report like that would be helpful. I think you need to give the staff some ability to shape it, because it's not just about the petition. You know how we always say 120 people move to Charlotte every day? We never say, and about 30 move out. So we have to get the right numbers and get the right information. So I think if you would give the staff the ability to look at this and say, how do I look at how schools have become overcrowded? And a lot of this will depend on the school system providing information about it. It's the assignment plan. It's where growth is. It's not just our part. So that's what I'm saying, is that I think this is a valid issue. It's going to take some work to get it done. But if we just look at petitions of like 4, we don't know how many people transfer out of a school every year. And so we have to figure out if we're going to get data, the data ought to be done in a whole picture. So I think if the staff can start sitting down with CMS, because I don't remember how, we had a calculation of how they do the percentages, and that's their formula, it's not ours. So we couldn't change what's in our document, even though we may not agree with the methodology. It wouldn't be something that we could just embrace because we don't have the data. So I think the report's a good idea, and I think if we could just have the staff ability to frame it so that you have good data for good decision-making, it would be a really helpful report. If that's okay for the framework and not just the petition.
And I know we have a need for more density in housing. I know that. But tonight, because last week, again, we kept hearing these schools, and now I don't think this week that we can ignore that. If there's a problem with these schools and there's systemic problems at these schools, it's not just the teachers, it's not the parents. It's a community. It takes a village.
Right, it does.
So
and I think you're right.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion? Mr. Eggleston?
Just on that point, I just want to make sure, when we're talking about the students that are added compared to the fact that the land is undeveloped, but on page 6, the school's response to this petition is that under the current zoning, if it were developed under the current zoning that it has, it would generate 38 students. If this rezoning is approved, it would generate 25 students. So it's actually 13 less than could be generated by the zoning category that exists now. So it is an addition compared to there being nothing there now, but it's actually a subtraction compared to what could be built by right today. So I think that's a relevant point there too.
Okay.
And one thing just to bear in mind as well, the staff report includes a brief bit of the information. CMS does provide a full list in this North Customer Service area, which covers, I think, multiple council districts, but primarily District 4, some of District 2. All the petitions that have been approved from 2018 to 2021 and the projected students are included in their memo. That's their full memo that's found online. So that information is available, and they do look at this looks like in more of a holistic manner than just presented on a petition by petition basis.
Okay, so we'll get some data points and get them accurate and try to make sure that we're getting the information that's necessary to address, at least better define the question. I think that's really a big part of this, that the role definition and the question that we're trying to answer. All right, do I have I'm sorry, Mr. Phipps?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but
Let's go ahead and do it one more time.
I'm talking about these drive-throughs here. Now, given the volume of trips generated by this petition, coupled with this adjacency to a major car-centric thoroughfare at Mallard Creek Church and the entry to this major employment center at University Research Park, you have all of those ingredients right there, which to me will only invite significant amounts of wraparound car traffic. In my mind, it would minimize pedestrian friendliness and walkability. So I get it that drive-throughs are convenient. You can stay in your car and then just idle for a few minutes at a time, hundreds of cars. But at this site, I mean, you're talking about a target-rich environment in terms of just cars at that location. And, I just, I'll probably end up supporting it, but because of the other components there, but I do have concerns about that. Thanks.
Well, I would hope that we don't end up just with the idea that we're approving it because we kind of just worked around the edges. Something this significant, I think Ms. Ashmir has made the point about open air, clean air, you're making design. I think this one requires some dive, but so that's part of it. And I want to say I made this mistake that I said that Mallard Creek was involved in that. They were not named in the 3 schools. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear that I didn't mean to say that Mallard Creek was a part of those 3 schools. No, that I was at the press conference. The schools.
The 3 schools. So the 3 schools were North Meck, Hopewell, and Julius Chambers.
Julius Chambers. Those were the 3 that were included in the discussion around this. But I said, if I said that, I just want to make sure that I did it correctly.
I know the news said it. Maybe you didn't. The news said it.
Well, the news was wrong to say it. They may have misreported it. The chief said the 3 schools were those. So, I'm not disagreeing because I mean the news system is about as perfect as I am. So. Yeah, we don't know what's going on in the investigation yet, so we shouldn't speculate on all of that.
Motion to close.
Until we know more. All right, we have a motion to close.
Second.
Second. All right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mr. Phipps?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Watlington?
Sure.
Okay, can I get the screen up, please? Mr. Driggs?
Yes.
Oh, did you skip me?
All right, Ms. Ajmira,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
Mr. Bakari,
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
All right, the next item is item number 38, rezoning petition 2021-068 by JAG Development Company, approximately 4.5 acres located on the west side of Carmel. It's in District 6. The current zoning is mixed-use development optional, and the proposed zoning is mixed-use development optional with a site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval upon resolution of issues related to transportation and technical revisions on site and building design. And in this case, we have Mr. McVeigh. Will you organize Mr. Sledden, Mr. Ricketts, Greg Van Wee, Jane Parrish, Matt Carrez, and Dan Melvin for the presentation? You'll have 3 minutes for the group.
Yes, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
We're organized and ready.
All right, Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2021-086, 4.5 acres just off Carmel Road on Carmel Center Drive, which is also just north of Pineville Matthews Road. Existing zoning for this petition is MUD optional. The proposed zoning is MUD optional site plan amendment. And the future land use from the South District Plan does recommend office and retail uses. That was amended by petition 2017-021. General development policy would recommend higher densities from a district plan. This petition did not meet the general development policy criteria for over 17 dwelling units per acre, but we'll get more into the staff rationale as we go through the presentation. The petition the proposal associated with this petition is for up to 305 multifamily dwelling units, up to 3,500 square feet of non-residential uses, minimum 3,000 square feet of those non-residential uses, not including residential leasing, office, and amenity, located on the ground floor along some of those proposed streets. We have 2 buildings being proposed not to exceed 75 feet in height. Parking will be provided in structured facilities. The northern building will not have an exposed elevation, and parking for the southern building would meet MUD street wall standards. Access from Carmel Road, the extension of Carmel Center Drive. We'd also have a north-south road constructed that would connect future property for future development. Also extends Carmel Center Drive to the western property line for a future connection for any redevelopment that may occur adjacent to them. Also provides architectural design standards, which would include exterior building materials, percentage of masonry materials used along street frontage, also orientation of buildings, breaking up building massing and limiting black walls, etc. Also would incorporate high visibility markings, varied paving or pavers, as well as lighting into the pedestrian crossing so it would be visible during day and night hours. Also provides a 16-foot building setback from curb along the existing and proposed private streets. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. We do have some outstanding issues related to transportation and some technical revisions related to site and building design to work through. As mentioned, is inconsistent with the South District Plan and general development policies. However, this site is located within an activity or mixed-use activity center, which was identified in the center's corridors and wedges growth framework. Those activity centers are typically priority areas for development with density that accommodate growth in an urban walkable development form. We also recommend moderate to high density residential within mixed-use activity centers. And we felt that that does fit within that overall framework. Also supports the vision for the area's walkable multi-use center by locating buildings along the public streets, reducing surface parking, increasing connectivity, and reducing block lengths. I also feel that the proposed use of mixes are compatible with nearby multifamily office and retail uses, as well as well buffered from single-family homes and non-residential development to the north, south, east, and west. So that provides a nice transition between the single family that's out there and this development that's being proposed. So overall, like I said, we do support and recommend approval of the petition upon resolution of those issues, and we'll be happy to take question following Ms. McVeigh and the rest of the petitioner team's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Mr. McVeigh.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Keith McVeigh with Moore Van Allen, assisting JAG Development with this rezoning petition. With me tonight representing the petitioner is Jeff Sledden and Adam Ricketts. They are available to answer questions. We want to thank Dave and his team for their assistance with this petition and their support. We will be working with them to address the remaining outstanding issues I also want to thank members of the Carmel Road Neighborhood Association or Association of Neighborhoods, Matt Karras, Jane Parrish, Chris Karras, Doug Burns, and the other members that met with us and helped us with this rezoning petition as we move through the rezoning process. Jane and Matt are here tonight to speak in favor of the petition. Just a little bit about JAG Development Group, or the Jefferson Apartment Group, formed in 2009, 4 partners, a full service real estate firm concentrating on development, acquisition, property management, services. Next slide, please. Dave has covered the location, just roughly about 4.5 acres on the west side of Carmel Road, rezoned in 2017 for climate-controlled storage and retail uses. Next slide, please. This is a close-up of the site. One of those allowed climate-controlled storage uses has been developed on the site. It's the building on the lower portion of the slide with a white roof. There's an existing commercial building on the remainder of the site that would be removed and torn down and be replaced with the proposed 305 residential units and up to 3,500 square feet of commercial use. This site could be developed with additional climate-controlled storage uses, as well as retail and office uses. We would propose again to replace it with the issues Dave mentioned, with the uses Dave mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, we have been working with the Carmel Road Association of Neighborhoods, and Matt and Jane are here tonight to speak in favor of the petition. I'm going to turn the presentation over to them quickly so they can address you guys, and then if you'll turn it back to me, we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Matt Karras. Jane and I are here tonight on behalf of many of the neighborhoods up and down Carmel Road, including my neighborhood, Montebello. We'd both like to thank Keith, who we've always appreciated the opportunity to work with, and JAG Development Company. We've worked with both of them on this project since early in the year, early in 2021, and they've done an excellent job of reflecting our organization's, I'd say, collective input into the petition. Due to the quality of what they proposed and the specifics of the site, which again are at the southern end of Carmel Road and are well set back from the street, we want to indicate our support for this petition, and again express our appreciation to Keith and JAG for working with us and for creating what we believe will be a quality project, which we're here tonight.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to have to wrap it up. That was the 3 minutes because of the rules that we have around our hearings. And so with that, we're going to open up the floor for questions by the council. Are there questions? Ms. Ajmira?
Yes, so thank you, Madam Mayor. I have concerns here with the proposed density of 67.78 units per acre. And I see that the center corridors, wedges growth, our framework recommends about 22 dwelling units per acre, and this rezoning is almost 68 units per acre. So I guess what is the rationale the staff has in recommending this rezoning? And have we seen similar high density nearby? Thank you.
Yeah, so we certainly looked at the density as well, and originally had some just general questions or concerns about some of that. Looked at the rest of the policy in the centers, corridors, and wedges framework and the mixed use activity center language, and it does recommend anywhere from 22, and then sometimes in cases 22 and beyond. We looked at examples of some other mixed use activity centers, particularly some areas that we have around Montford that have gone to some rezonings that have gone up to almost 80 or above dwelling units per acre, and really started to look at how that fits into the long range framework of how this mixed use activity center will continue to develop out, and felt that while the density number looks high, the amount of units within the form of the building itself seemed to create a situation where it was more compact development that would fit in more with that framework of pedestrian friendliness, and provided in an area where there's a lot of existing retail and other amenities that can be accessed either via pedestrian connections or vehicles. So long term, we do feel like that density recommendation is something, again, I think that we're looking to look just beyond what the number is and look at the form and functionality of the site as well. And staff felt that that was still an appropriate general outcome for this property in this area of Carmel Road.
To follow up on that, Dave, you said we have approved rezonings or mixed-use rezoning up to 80 units per acre. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, could you just reference some of that in our follow-up report? And I do like here when it comes to proposed vehicle trip generation, we are looking at less trips per day because of the mixed use in terms of multifamily and the retail, and it's not just all retail, so certainly there is lesser traffic impact. And that's great because we do get a lot of emails around traffic and congestion in this area. So, well, I'm looking forward to getting that follow-up report, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Bakari.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say that I love the looks of the start of this. I really appreciate high density, especially when we need so many units in our city right now, particularly in my district. And I particularly like the background work of the community and so many neighborhoods and the petitioner coming together. So look forward to hearing more about it in the next month, but appreciate this is a great start and move to close.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Second.
I'll make the first
Let me get a
motion.
first, Mr.
You said
Driggs.
move to close. I'm seconding
Okay,
it.
so can we have?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mr. Phipps,
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Watlington, Ms. Ajmira,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
Mr. Bakari,
Yes.
Mr. Driggs,
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
All right, item 39 is a petition 2021-182 by Bird Co. Inc., approximately 2/10 of an acre along with frontages along Downs Avenue and Shamrock Drive. It's in District 1. The current zoning is single-family residential. The proposed
Chris,
zoning-
now that it's over, should I just leave?
What?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go. It's cool.
Who was that?
Somebody who has it muted.
Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Winston. All right, the proposed zoning, I said, is urban residential conditional. Staff recommends approval upon resolution of issues requested related to transportation, site and building design and environment. And in this case, we have no speakers. So we'll have the staff presentation, then a motion to adjourn. No, I'm not really. We'll have questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's
Okay.
2021-182. It's just 0.23 acres. It's on Shamrock and Downs Ave. Current zoning is R8. The proposed zoning is mentioned as UR1 conditional. Adopted future land use is from the Central District Plan. It does recommend 8 DUA. In this case, the petition also meets GDP for up to 8 to 12 dwelling units per acre. Excuse me. The proposal itself is to permit up to 2 single-family detached dwellings along with any accessory uses permitted in UR1. Also commits to keeping the existing setbacks and yards of the existing R8 district. This petition may look a little bit familiar to everybody. We did see this property come through a couple months ago as just that conventional R8 that it's currently zoned. Unfortunately, as staff continues to do the review and look to help the applicant move forward with subdivision of the lot to create another single-family home on Downs Avenue that didn't meet the acreage requirement for the R8 district. As a result, we proposed the applicant move forward with this UR1 conditional that we're seeing now. Essentially, it would allow what we had envisioned with that R8, which was to split it into 2 lots like we see on most of those lots there with frontage on Shamrock and Downs. Construct a second home on Downs Avenue to be behind the existing house that's on Shamrock. So unfortunately, we went through that conventional route, realized our error, and are taking the application back through with the applicant to get the same outcome, just under a different zoning district. So just wanted to make everybody aware that we have seen this one just under that conventional R8 just a few months ago. So staff does recommend approval. We are working with the applicant to resolve some outstanding issues and technical revisions for transportation, as well as site and building design and environment. As mentioned, it's inconsistent with the residential or the central district plan, but consistent with GDP. And also, like I said, we've kind of worked through with this petitioner on that R8 and felt comfortable with it then, and we're generally getting the same outcome that we envisioned under that zoning. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. I don't know if Mr. Scagliani has joined us on the call. Any questions for the applicant? I'm not sure if he was able to join us or not, but I can certainly try to answer any questions you might have as well.
All right. Mr. Eggleston?
Not necessarily a question about this. It makes a lot of sense. I just want to make sure that if we, as the city, made an error in advising them in the first rezoning, I hope they're not paying for 2 rezonings.
Yeah, that's something we've coordinated with the applicant on to try to work out a reasonable solution. We're still coordinating with them on that, but have some good options for them in mind.
Okay, yeah, because I totally accept that mistakes happen. I just want to make sure that when we make the mistake, one of our citizens isn't paying for it.
Agreed. Thank you.
Motion to close.
All right, wait. I'm sorry. You can't do that yet. Mr. Winston?
Well, the question is pretty similar to Mr. Eggleston. I think it, from a policy standpoint, what do we have? And again, if this might be something we can take offline or continue to talk about down the road. But policy-wise, what does our policy say? Is this something that we have to be vigilant to, or you have guidance, from policy?
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of insight. We've had some things like this where something comes into permitting, and during the rezoning process on a conditional plan, there was something missed. We've had a couple that was an MX1, and we had to take it to MX2 because certain nuances in MX1 didn't work when permitting. And typically when we do that, we don't have the ability to just waive fees. We have a text amendment fee, which is significantly less. It's really just to cover the administrative side of posting and advertising the property, doing just some minimal staff review to get it through the process. And that's what we've used in the past. That's one of the options we're exploring here. And we hope we can maybe get some other tools potentially in our video updates and things, but that's the most effective guidance that we've got so far and how we've handled some of those in the past, because again, we don't have the ability to just waive them altogether, but the text amendment fee is significantly less, and felt like that was a good compromise on some of those previous ones where we've run into the same issue.
Thank you. I think this is something that we might, in TAP committee or as a council, might want to think about, right? It's one of many, one small thing out of the big part of land use policy. But I'm sure as we go through the place type mappings and go through reasoning an entire city, that mistakes will happen. And I hope that we have some corrective measures in policy so that we're not just making sure that we catch it and leaving it up to human error. Let's put it into policy.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close.
I have a motion and a second.
No,
Mayor,
there's still questions.
Sorry, Mr. Bakari? Excuse me, I didn't look up.
I think that might be an old hand.
Ms. Ajmera, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do have a question on this. So, well, not in regarding this rezoning ask, which is just subdividing and then adding additional single-family unit. With our 2040 plan, would this site be eligible for a duplex? It's 0.23 acre, and without developer having to go through rezoning process, would we have allowed duplex on this site? I know details are still being worked out, the mapping exercise is still underway. I'm just trying to understand in terms of the density here, especially, additional burden the developer has to go through to just get one unit approved, and such a small ask of 0.23 acre land.
Yeah, so I won't be able to really get into the specifics of whether the duplex item would be worked out. I would imagine that'd be a lot that could be under consideration. One thing we did mention to the applicant at the time when we realized the R8, the way the ordinance calculates density, he met all the lot size requirements, setback requirements, all the things you would need to technically split the lot under R8. But the first calculation that the ordinance has staff do is a calculation on density. So 0.23 divided by that 8 DUA doesn't get him the density to split it into two lots. It had to be 0.25 or whatever that number may be. So the UDO, I know, will, I think, get away from that first calculation being the density side of it, and it would more look at, do you have the right lot width, right lot depth, and other things to subdivide a lot versus making that first calculation density. So we did offer, do you want to hold off until maybe that's approved? He was in the midst of working through some contractual obligations on the first house that's out there and splitting the second lot out. So this was the best course of action for him to take to get some of those things buttoned up. But, in the future, if it would have waited, we would have been able to split the lot likely down the road. Whether or not it would be an opportunity for a duplex, I think, again, this would probably be one of those lots that could be considered, but until we see the final outcome, I wouldn't be able to say 100%.
Thank you, Dave. That answers my question. And I'm trying to figure out this additional burden for a developer to go through this whole process for such a small acreage. I mean, not even an acre, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We did explore just about everything we could until we got to this point. So certainly try to exhaust every option.
Motion to close?
We have a motion to close and a motion to adjourn at the same time?
Sure.
We
Close
do?
and adjourn.
All in favor, please say aye or sign, leave the screen.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned.